6'3", out of Erie, Pennsylvania, Dr. Ryan Savage-Molly. The man in the middle, the editor, the guy that makes it look good. From Titusville, Pennsylvania, at 6'1", Jerry Witowski. And special guest, standing approximately 5'11" and 5'10" in no specific order, former head coach of the Maplewood Tigers and the Jamestown Red Raiders and the Franklin Knights, as well as the assistant coach for the Maplewood Tigers and the head coach for the Grove City Eagles, Bill Hager and Don Fee. And the main attraction tonight for episode number 23 of Hey Samos, My Story, My Passion, at 6'2", out of Erie, Pennsylvania, the head basketball coach of the Gannon University Knights, John Fee.
All nurses to the nurses station.
All us country people are real close family. Lately, some of my kinfolk don't get around too good, you see. When that doctor asked them, son, how'd you get in this condition? They says, hey, Sawbones, I'm just carrying on an old family tradition. They wanna know, Doc, why do you think I got this pain in my joints from years of playing hard in this life that's too short? When that doctor asked me, son, how'd you get in this condition? I says, hey, Sawbones, I'm just carrying on an old family tradition. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tell me all about it, Doc.
Hey everybody, Dr. Ryan Molly here, orthopedic surgeon, cutter of bones, entrepreneur, businessman, and most importantly, loving husband and father of 3 very young and active busy boys. And tonight, I've been waiting for this episode for a long time. This guest is probably the hottest ticket right now in Erie, Pennsylvania in terms of collegiate athletics. It's funny because I knew him when he was literally maybe 1.5 feet, 2 feet tall. He had bleach blonde hair, looked like Dennis the Menace. And he's now a young gentleman, a coach, and is extremely successful. First year here at Gannon University, and he has literally this high-powered, high-tempo offense that if you haven't seen him play, you're going to definitely want to go check him out. I saw him play once earlier this year. I'm already looking. I think they're in town next Wednesday, and then going to try to catch a couple games closer to Christmas. So without further ado, Coach Jordan Fee.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm doing well. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah.
Glad to be here. Things are good.
This is going to be fun.
It is going to be fun. I appreciate you having me. I've heard really good things, not seen enough yet. I'm looking forward to kind of rewinding, going back and checking out a couple other episodes. But in the meantime, it's great to be here.
So I feel like I'm kind of cheating on my Mercyhurst history.
I'm not even sure who Mercyhurst is. You're going to have to inform me. But,
they're the team that beat IUP last year.
Gotcha.
And
okay.
Yeah, it's going to be a different matchup, I think, this year. But I'll be at at least one of those games, if not both. But I feel like I'm cheating right now, but I had to do this because I'm supporting Jordan.
Let's go. That's what you look better in those colors anyway. Now we're talking. Now I'm fired up. Yeah, you look good in those colors, like a natural.
All right, so we got the Gannon gear on, but yeah. So Jordan, as we always start these episodes out, I like my guests to be able to get kind of a real kind of superficial, kind of 30,000-foot view of who Jordan Fee is.
Sure.
So who you are, where you grew up, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
your family.
from here, I'll try to give you the real short and sweet. From here, was born in Erie. My parents were living in Edinburgh at the time. They met at Edinburgh. So I grew up in Edinburgh. We moved away to Grove City, just south, when my dad got the head job there, the head boys basketball job there. And grew up. My childhood was Grove City, Pennsylvania. Incredible place to be raised. It's just a incredible community, a sports community, a loving community, a lot of phenomenal people there. And it's just, again, a great place to be raised. But got an older brother. He's, I think, 16 months older than me.
Oh, you guys are real close.
And yeah, so made for some battles growing up. But my mother was a retired teacher at an elementary school in Grove City. My father taught and coached. Both of my brother and I were both coached by my father in high school.
How was that?
It was pretty seamless. I get asked that question a lot. Yeah, I think some of it was I was a decent enough player to where, I think, and maybe I'd say a little, and not giving myself too much credit, but had some natural coaching ability maybe.
Yeah.
So I think we saw eye to eye a lot.
Yeah.
So it made it easy. A little tougher, like with my brother and the back and forth of being a young, immature high school kid and him the same. So we'd go at it a little bit, but beyond that, honestly, very seamless and easy.
Your dad had a lot of success too.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, he's one of the best basketball coaches, along with obviously a guy and Bill Hager that I've ever seen. So fortunate to have assimilated through those guys and just being around every day since I was in diapers. Being in the gym and not having a choice but to learn just by being present. And so I was lucky enough to go on and play collegiately and bounced around a little bit. I started at at Air Force preparatory school. So to do so, you had to enlist in the military. So I was enlisted in the Air Force. And
were you out in Colorado Springs?
Yeah, for a year.
Nice.
Yeah, so enlisted, went
it's
through
a beautiful
basic,
area.
just incredible. I mean, we sat at the base of the Rockies, but went through boot camp and did the whole nine there. Finished my year there was a postgraduate year, so it was just a very influential year on me, and just an incredible year of my life. But went on and decided I did not want to be in the military. Went to the University of Detroit Mercy, played a couple years there.
Know the Detroit area well?
Sure. So I got to know Detroit very well, and decided
give me some time frames when you were at these
so
places.
I graduated high school in 07. So 07, 08, I was at Air Force.
Okay.
8 to 10, I was at the University of Detroit Mercy playing.
I would have been in Michigan at
How about
point.
that? Yeah. So we were rubbing elbows without knowing it, but I was there. Decided they did not have education. I decided at the time I thought I wanted to teach and coach.
Okay.
At the high school level. So I transferred from there and ended up at a school called West Liberty University that had recruited me out of high school in northern West Virginia, not far from Wheeling, West Virginia.
Okay.
So junior, senior year there, I stayed on. I realized at that time I thought I wanted to get into college coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So I stayed on as kind of a graduate assistant for a year, kind of got my feet wet in the business, and then bounced around a little bit. I actually went to Clarion for a year as a graduate assistant, went back to Detroit. My college coach there took me back and allowed me to finish my master's there as a grad assistant. Being a grad assistant in college coaching is it's a way to get in. It's kind of a lot of times the way to get your foot in the door. So it's the way that I took. Went back there. From there, I was still close with my college coach at West Liberty, who I'm sure I'll talk about again throughout this, but he knew about a vacancy, a full-time assistant position at a school called Nova Southeastern
and that's in
South Florida. Yeah.
Okay.
So I went down there as the full-time assistant. I was only on the job for, I think it was maybe, a little over a year. And we were notified that the head coach, I was the full-time assistant, the head coach who had been there for a lot of years, was not going to be retained the following year. So here I am, just fairly new on this job and thinking, I'm going to scramble to look for another one because, in this business, in our world, you don't hire assistants when you're firing a head coach. It's just not what they do. So whether or not I was worthy didn't matter. I was going to have to look for another job or hang on tight to whoever the next head coach was. And luckily for me, as fate would have it, my college coach, Jim Crutchfield from West Liberty, came down, took the head job, and it's been a wild ride since. I mean, I've been down there we were down there 6 seasons together and
Oh, wow.
kind of transformed it. And I was lucky to be just a very small part of it, but transform it from a kind of a doormat to we won the national championship last year. During the time I was kind of
D2?
D2, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So during the time I met my wife, I was recruiting up in Northeast Ohio, Pittsburgh, and my brother and I actually had met up one night in Pittsburgh. I ended up meeting my wife that night. We dated long distance for a while. She also played in college, so we kind of had that in common. She moved down there to
Where
Florida
did she
with
play?
me. She played at Lake Erie College.
Okay.
Played at St. Vincent St. Mary, where LeBron played in high school, was a good player, and
Oh,
then
wow.
played at Lake Erie College, was a good player. So yeah, we kind of made South Florida our home for the last 5 years, and with success sometimes opened some doors, and the chance to come back here was too good to pass up. So here we are.
So how did that work out? I mean, did they reach out to you? Did you see a job posting in Northwest Pennsylvania and you recognized the name of Gannon University? Or how'd that all?
Yeah. So I had a connection with some of the administration, the former administration of mine. We're kind of connected to the people here at Gannon. So it was one of those things, it was kind of like a mutual acquaintance. In our world, people keep their eyes open and, just kind of keep tabs on them, what's shaking and moving throughout the business. And so I thought that this opportunity may open. So I would call it mutual. They kind of reached out. I think I made it obvious that I had an interest too, which maybe made it easier for them to pursue. And
Sure.
Came up here and flew up, interviewed actually the day, we flew back, touchdown. I turned my phone on from the jet, from the national championship game, and had a text message kind of asking to get on a phone call. And I think I flew out 48 hours later, and that was that. So here we are.
That was for your interview?
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when did you accept the position? Was it in the springtime?
I think I got hired right at the beginning of April.
Okay.
So it was very bang bang. I mean, it was very quick. Again, it's kind of been a whirlwind since that. Whatever that was, that national championship game was a Sunday, maybe a Saturday. I think we got back on a Sunday. I flew up here on a Tuesday, but right at the beginning of April.
Was it a one interview?
Yeah, it was a couple phone calls and then an in person, which was fairly thorough.
And they knew what they were getting, right? They had been like college coaches scout other teams. I'm sure they were scouting you as a coach.
Smart people, yeah. I mean,
your style of play.
They'd done their due diligence and they knew the ins and outs. I think they, in this, there was enough of a network there. I think they made some phone calls and they knew style of play for sure. But obviously, I
can't wait to get into some of those questions.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just fortunate to be here. Gannon's a great place. Gannon has just like phenomenal human beings.
Yeah.
Throughout from the president on down. So just to, having the chance to be back in Erie near my in-laws, my wife's family, near my parents, our family.
Now, do your parents still live in Grove City?
They do. My wife's parents are still in Northeast Ohio. So
nice.
Just being able to make time for family again is really neat. It's new, it's a little different.
Well, as you come into like being a parent too,
sure,
right?
Yeah.
I would imagine that's the next step.
We'd like to have kids. Yeah, for sure. So that part's, it's the timing hopefully works out for that too. Yeah.
For sure. And being close to family during that is so important.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
you thirsty?
I'm thirsty.
Yeah.
I'm
So
always thirsty. Yeah.
beverage break. I always ask my guests what they like. And you know what? I thought I liked this guy because of his style of play. But I like him even more because of his style of beer. He's an IPA guy, just like myself. So tonight, I've got us some Dogfish Head.
Let's go.
60-minute IPA.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah.
And you are the first official guest, other than my boys, because I did a podcast with them, that gets the first souvenir.
Wow.
The pint glass, the Hey Sawbones.
Absolutely honored. I like it. That's big time.
I'd
That's
like to say
official.
it's going to be
I'm
worth
honored.
something, but
I love it.
if
I
nothing
love it.
else. So hopefully this thing is not going to explode on me.
No.
So, we kind of talked a little bit about the format. What we'll do is I'll have you ask me, some business questions, personal questions, and then I'm more excited, and I guarantee that my guests are more excited
Awesome.
to learn more about you and kind of what makes Jordan Fee tick. So
Cool, man. These are sweet.
So do you have a favorite IPA?
I'll tell you what I like. I had a Voodoo has this one called Love Child.
Yep.
It's phenomenal.
I thought you were going to say Good Vibes, but
No,
the
I
Love
haven't
Child is
had
good.
enough of them.
Cheers.
Cheers, man. Thanks so much for having me. I
Yeah,
really
of
appreciate
course.
it. Great to meet you.
Yeah. It's funny. You've met my boys on multiple occasions.
Right.
And like I said, I met you 40 years ago,
Yeah,
probably.
but
Well, not 40 because you weren't
But
born
30,
yet. But
but 30 is a long time. It's been a long time. It's wild. I mean, as you can imagine, for me, just everything's come so full circle and seeing people again. I talk about whether it be a Drew Esterian or whomever, and so much of life has gone by, and now you're back and you're together. It's just it's a cool, right? A really neat.
And as time goes, you're going to run into some more people
Sure.
that remember you
had,
from
yeah.
different areas of your life when
Sure.
your childhood, your high school years,
Sure.
that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, absolutely.
fire away.
Awesome. Love it. Well, as any decent coach, and I'm not calling myself decent, but as any coach would do, I've got my little scouting report here, my notes on me, so I don't make any mistakes.
So I've had multiple coaches.
Okay.
Coach Bill Hager
Yeah.
was the first one that actually set up an interview before the podcast a week
About
before.
that.
And he had a notebook. He came in with Bobby Knight books. He came in with
doesn't
Coach
surprise
K
me.
books. He came in with Dean Smith books, all autographed, all personally signed,
Well, yeah.
with a little message to Coach. But similar. And then I had 2 nights ago, Coach Jamie Plunkett,
The name's familiar.
Meadville High School hockey coach.
Awesome.
8 state championships
Wow,
with
how
the
about
Meadville
that?
Bulldogs.
How cool.
So he was sitting in the seat 2 days ago, and he knew your father, and
How about that?
he was good friends with Bill and your dad. And I mentioned, that I had you coming on. He's like, I've heard about him, and I need to come up and watch his style of play. And I said, you would love it, being a hockey guy too, 'cause
Sure.
the
And
pace. But
quick, yeah.
so
That's
yeah,
awesome. Well, I'm sure they've both outdone me on questions, but I'm gonna give it my best shot here.
Yeah.
So how about the toughest surgery you've ever done, and why so?
Ooh, boy, you're coming in with a hard one right out of the gate. So, I do primary hip and knee replacements, and then I do what's called revision hip and knee replacements, which is you had a hip or knee replacement either done by myself or somebody else, and for whatever reason it failed,
Sure.
a couple years out or 10, 15 years out, and you need to redo it. And some of the more challenging cases are generally more revisions, because a lot of times the patients have lost bone. So you're having to, number one, you got to take the implants out that are already in there.
Sure.
Sometimes the easiest part of that is if they are loose, you got to take them out. But then the hard part is, you got to fill the voids, right?
Sure.
You've got these gaps where there used to be bone, and you have to fill it with either more bone, like graft that you would get from a cadaver, or metal. And then you have to use multiple screws and different augments, metal pieces to kind of fill that void. And then hopefully you're wanting that bone, the native bone from the patient, to grow into the metal. So I can't think of a particular, like, one case off the top of my head,
Sure.
but I would say it would have to be a revision scenario. I think I can think of it now. It was during my fellowship, and it was a revision knee, but it was a revision of a revision.
Wow.
So this patient had big, long stems down into their tibia, up into their femur, and they were fully cemented. And to get these parts out,
and when you say fully cemented, you mean
so they have a stem that goes down inside the tibia, and the way that it's held in the bone is with bone cement, like a dentist would use cement in your mouth. It's similar to that. And so this patient, I can't remember exactly why we were doing the revision, but we had to take all the parts out.
How about that?
And I'll tell you what, it took 2 hours to get the tibial part out. My attending, Dr. Lombardi, who is one of the slickest surgeons I've ever watched operate, never saw him struggle. This was the one case I saw him struggle. He broke out because he needed a break. He's like, Ryan, have at it. And I mean, we were beating on this thing to try to get the tibia out. And it's kind of like one of those things where you get the jar and you can't open it. I'm trying. I'm like, here, Jordan, try it. And you
Sure.
just pop it one time. It's because he probably loosened it, right?
Sure.
Well, he had been beating on this thing, and it was not easy, but I eventually got it loose. I probably worked on it for 15, 20 minutes after he beat on it for an hour.
Wow.
And and then you get the parts out, and you're like, whew. But now you have to get all the cement debris that's still inside the bone. And so you have to chisel it. It's just very, very tedious, time consuming.
Oh, how about that? That's incredible. That's
Yeah.
incredible. How about second question would be kind of in parallel with that is pre-surgery. Do you have a routine?
Yeah.
And is it like even more than maybe the surgical routine though? Do you have what do you do that day? Is there a special routine that day and leading up to? Do you treat the day any different, or do you?
So the reason I'm laughing is I'd never been asked that question, and I love the question until 2 days ago. Coach Jamie Plunkett asked
Did
me
he
the same
really?
question. Yeah. So it's a little bit redundant to our users, but you didn't hear it. So I'm OCD. You know, I played a lot of athletics growing up. I played basketball. I played volleyball.
Sure.
And I would do the same thing before every game, whether it was a meal, whether it was the way that I would get dressed, whether it was the way I would warm up. So it's very similar now. So every single day, I do surgery Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, usually clinic on Thursdays and Fridays. And I do the same thing. Wake up, walk out, turn the coffee on, go back in, go to the restroom, go brush my teeth, take a shower, get dressed, get changed, go get my coffee, get my thing of water, because I have a long commute every day. I'm actually operating. You know where Transfer, Pennsylvania is?
I've heard of Transfer,
So
but I don't know.
It's halfway between Greenville and Sharon.
Wow, how about
So
that?
kind of down.
Sure,
I
yeah.
mean, closer
neck of the
to
woods, yeah.
where you grew up than
Correct.
here.
Wow.
So it's about an hour and 15 minutes.
Really, wow.
So get my car. One of the first things I do is I pray every morning. Help get me through this day. And then I'll usually do a podcast, an audiobook, or I'll just listen to some music just to kind of like get in my zone before. And it's like my favorite time of day because most people, they like to be close to work. I need that time.
Sure.
Right. So I go and it's quiet time. It's like my time. So then I get to the hospital, I go meet my patients for the day, and I'll do 6 or 7 joints in a day. I'll have my first 3 patients come in. I'll talk to each of them. I'll mark their extremity, what I'm doing for them, and answer any questions they may have. And then, you know, the same thing surgically, it's the same routine for each case. The lights are in the exact same position. I'm like a commercial airline pilot where I need to make sure that every gauge is perfect. The bed is perfectly parallel to the seam and the tile that comes down the center of the room.
I mean, do you have a physical checklist for that?
Yeah,
Or
it's here.
yeah.
And I've just done it so many times. So I'm approaching 10,000 joint replacements.
Wow.
That was a Bill Hager question that he asked me. How many have I done? So sometime in the spring of 2024, I will have eclipsed 10,000 joint replacements. And so for me, it's like any good disciplined athlete would have a routine.
Sure.
And you stick to it, and you decrease variables, you decrease mistakes.
Sure.
So it's just like, it may get boring to some people, but not to me.
That's
It's
awesome.
just how I
Yeah, it's
operate.
really neat. I was
Literally,
curious.
it's how I operate, but how
Sure.
I function.
Sure. Genuinely curious about that.
Yeah.
How about the hardest part outside of the surgery itself? The toughest part of your job is what?
When something doesn't go well.
Right.
So fortunately, what I do, but between probably 98, 99% of the time, the patients do very, very well, and they're extremely grateful. And it's that 1 or 2 there where something just doesn't go as well, or maybe everything objectively looks great. The x-rays look great. Their knee is stable. The knee moves well, or the hip moves well, but the patient is not happy. And, you know, I put so much time and energy into this.
Sure.
And when something doesn't go as planned, or if the patient's not satisfied, that is probably the hardest thing on me. Because
Sure.
my biggest fear in life has always been failure. And to me, it's like, that was a failure. And then you're racking your brain on what you could have done differently. And sometimes there's nothing you could have done differently, because you look at everything like, it looks perfect, it moves perfect, but they don't like it. And that's just the reality that I've kind of had to come and accept. You know, that there's going to be people that you never are able to please.
Sure.
And you can do your best. You can be loving, caring, compassionate. And to deal with an angry patient is probably, I would not wish that on my worst enemy. It is exhausting. And I lose a lot of sleep over it. People don't realize that, you know, I mean, they realize that I take my job seriously, but a lot of times you say, well, I leave it at work. It's hard.
Ooh.
And I brought some of those home, and you met my wife earlier. She's my sounding board, and she's my, saint to be able to kind of listen and sometimes that's all it is. I don't want suggestions or comments or feedback. It's just, I just need to vent a little bit.
Sure.
But she grounds me. She helps to realize, like, Ryan, are you forgetting about the 98 or 98% or 98 or 99% that you did help and did, like, it's the losses. You remember the losses way more than the wins, right?
Sickening, isn't it?
Maybe other than your national championship.
Yeah.
The wins just kind of blend in because they're expected. Just like great outcomes from me are expected. It's that, oh, you're supposed to be this great surgeon and this happened. It's just like, I'm still a human being.
Sure. Yeah.
So
That's
it's the reality.
it's funny, just not funny at all, but it's interesting, the parallel, right, of just different occupations. But just hearing you say that, it resonates so much for that reason. So
Yeah.
you mentioned, I'm flowing right into the personal here, right?
Go for it.
You mentioned podcasts. You mentioned being on the road, listening to podcasts. What do you listen to? Anyone specifically?
Yeah. So the first podcast I ever listened to was probably back when I was in Detroit, and I had a commute there too. I had an over an hour commute.
Okay.
I really like history. I really like ancient Roman history.
Okay.
So the first podcast I ever listened to, I heard the term podcast. I'm like, what are these things?
Sure.
Went and I searched. I'm like, oh, there's this cool one on the life of Caesar.
Okay.
And it was two guys talking about, the rise and fall of Julius Caesar, but then subsequently went into all the Caesars after him, Octavian and so on and so forth. And to, like, again, hear the Roman history, and I'm huge on, like, leadership. Love good stories of leadership. Love, again, I'm a huge athletic fan as well.
Sure.
So I don't care what the sport is. I love seeing the best of the best play.
Sure.
It could be even a sport I don't understand, but I can appreciate greatness. And I love those leaders, the Tom Brady's, the Michael Jordans, the Tiger Woods, even though he was an individual playing an individual sport, but, like, he was still a leader
Sure.
of the game that he played. And to learn Julius Caesar's, he was a great general, but he got out in the field. He actually got on the front line with his guys. Like, he wasn't sitting back on a horse saying, go there,
Telling
go
people
there.
what to do,
Yeah, he
sure.
was getting down and dirty with them and putting his life on the line. So
Really cool. I'm going to give you one here. The Learning Leader podcast. It's now that
Okay.
you said that, the guy, let's see, AJ Hawk, the former
Yeah.
Ohio State
AJ
great.
Fohawk, yeah.
Yep. His brother, Ryan Hawk, is a successful businessman, entrepreneur now, but was a good football player. I believe he played Division I football, maybe at Miami of Ohio or Ohio
With
U,
Big
one of
Ben?
them. He may have. Matter of fact, he might have. I think maybe as the story goes, maybe he was there and then transferred when Big Ben got there, or maybe he played behind Big Ben, one of the two. But
Was
He
he a
has a-
quarterback?
I believe so. I could be
Okay.
wrong on that, but I believe so. But he's got a podcast called the Learning Leader Podcast.
Okay.
And he has some of the most impressive people you could ever come across. It's neat. He's got some coaches, but he's also got people from all walks of life in different fields who are in who are leaders in their own right.
Yeah.
And he brings them on there, and it's phenomenal. It's one I've listened to religiously. In fact, I shot him an email the other day. I've never reached out. He's very I think he's very approachable with his listeners, and I've never done so. Probably been listening for 5 years. I mean, every episode.
This isn't just like
no, I mean, and maybe not quite that long, but if not close.
Does he do a weekly podcast?
He usually it's sporadic. I don't know that it follows. But there's a lot, and there's so much content, and it's phenomenal, and they're so good that, like, when you go back and you can re-listen. I mean, it's incredible, and some of the people you've got on there they're so brilliant. But it's interesting because I think for me, you can't escape. Maybe like you, I can't escape basketball, right? It's hard to escape. And when I'm home, I'm watching film, and then there's a game on TV, and I'm back to film, and I'm taking recruiting calls. And so it's a way to, I think, learn and grow a little bit, and maybe use the word vent. It's my way to, outside of time with my wife, dinner with my wife, it's a way to, almost.
When will you listen to
subconsciously
this?
vent.
Because you're not in the car that much, right?
To recruiting, travel often, but
when you're on the road.
even sporadic. Like, I'll listen maybe if I've got a 20-minute commute into the office. I'll pop it on and listen to it later in the day. If I'm on the treadmill, I'll turn it on again. So work it out, I'll turn it on again, and then sometimes throughout the day, even as I'm working, I'll have it on in the background, depending on what I'm doing, planning practice, what have you. So Yeah, it's one you should listen to. Learning Leader. I'd recommend it to anybody.
Ryan Hawk.
Ryan Hawk, Learning Leader podcast is just phenomenal.
Remind me when we're done,
I
or
will.
text me that
I will do
podcast.
it. Yeah, you'll love it. I tell everybody that'll listen. Your greatest mentor, who is it and why?
Professionally or just life?
How about both?
So this is gonna sound a bit cliche, but and it's somebody I've never met. Well, now I'm gonna do 3.
Okay.
Right? Can I do that?
You're allowed.
All right. It's my podcast. I can do
You
it.
can do whatever you want.
All right. So I would say my first mentor was my dad, right?
Cool.
To really teach me the value of really hard work and just being dedicated, being diligent, and grit. He taught me grit, like never ever give up. Like I grew up on a farm out near Maplewood, so we were constantly, things were breaking, and you get frustrated. You'd say, well, let's just go buy a new one. Well, he was not going to do that. So it was always like, we got to figure out a way. So he really kind of challenged me to become a very creative thinker. And I was pretty good with my hands at a very young age. So he'd give me the challenges like, oh, the lawnmower broke, or the weed eater this or that, and can you take this apart and put it back together and fix it? So he was the first one. Again, a guy I never met, but a guy that taught me kind of my competitiveness, and again, the grit and the just never say die type of thing was Michael Jordan. I was fortunate enough when I grew up that it was at that sweet age of
jealous of that.
I was 10 years old when he was just coming into his championship years. He was born in 1978, right? So I even got to see him play at Carolina, not at Carolina, but when he was at Carolina, and those mid 80s, man, that was like I was over at the Hager house all the time. So Nate was Magic Johnson. Do you know Justin Johnson at all?
I don't.
So he went to Sagertown. So there was 3 families. It was the Hagers, the Johnsons, and the Mollies. We used to go to Hershey every year. It was our family trip, and we'd go for the state basketball championship. We always knew a team that was there playing, and we'd get 3 hotel rooms next to each other. Actually, the Richards family was there. There was a family from Cambridge Springs that would come down with us too, and it was awesome. And us kids, we'd go to the old Hershey Park Arena, and we'd buy nosebleed seats and kind of work our way down. But so yeah, just growing up with basketball, I got off track there a little bit. But so Jordan, and then professionally, it was my fellowship director, Dr. Adolph Lombardi, who really taught me the value of just being extraordinarily precise, right? Just being meticulous. Don't accept, I'm a 0.5 millimeter guy. So think about taking a credit card and then splitting that in half. That means a lot to me in my world. It's kind of like a tool and die world, at least for me. Some guys are like, it's good enough. And I'm a perfectionist. So I really split hairs. And he was one of those guys that just taught me to never lose that, no matter how many years you've been doing this. And then he taught me the other big, important message that I teach my team all the time is there's never a job too small, right? So if you are not moving as efficiently or as quickly as you want to in an OR, because you got a lot of cases to do, you need to do something to help the team. And there's no job too small. So it may be grabbing a mop. It may be changing sheets on a bed. It may be helping a patient transfer over. It may be opening trays for the next case. And I do that as frequently as I can. And I surround myself with people that think similarly, that, again, there's no job too small. Like my office in Meadville, if I walk in the bathroom and the toilet's dirty, I'm going to clean it. Number one, because I own the building and I want it to look presentable, but I want the patient experience to be second to none. And I can't have somebody going in and saying that.
Sounds like we tell our guys off, which is, how you do anything is how you do everything, right?
So that's one of my favorite quotes ever. And I've heard that. Who is that?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. I've just heard it a million times.
The way I kind of say it's very similar. I said the way you do anything is the way you do everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah,
so
exactly right.
I'm sure you use it for practice, right? It's if you want to play well in a game, you got to prepare well in practice.
Absolutely.
So I'm the same way. Like surgery, you can't just come in and think you're going to do a great surgery if you haven't practiced and done it literally thousands of times before.
And then how do you prepare for the practice? Kind of why I asked you the question, about the detail and the preparation going in is kind of curious on that. How do you?
I'm sure you have your rituals.
It's not just the practice, but it's the pre-practice. And how did you prepare the night before? Because literally everything from the time you leave practice today, for us, what was today, until tomorrow before practice is preparation. You know,
Yeah.
what are you going to do to
Your
prepare
brain's
yourself?
going, right?
Yeah. And maybe it is time off. You know, maybe it's taking some downtime, but what are you doing between the two? So, well, my last one for you is by far and away where my most curiosity comes from, but it's, just being a father and, juggling your boys and your wife and your relationship, your home, your extended family, and then what is a very, a very tough job and a very what can be consuming job. You mentioned the takeaway, right? I struggle with that often, which is not being able to have an outlet, right? Sometimes, and if you feel, I'm sure at times can feel overwhelmed. How do you juggle all that without becoming just that overwhelmed?
So
And maybe the second part, sorry to interrupt, would be like, are there keys? Is there organizational keys? Is there stuff that you do to help mitigate that?
yeah, great question. Love it. Honestly, love it. It's probably one of my favorite questions anyone's ever asked me. And it's not a simple answer. I'll try to bring it down to some key points. It doesn't happen easily and it doesn't happen quickly. This has been a work in progress. I've been an orthopedic surgeon kind of on my own for coming up on 15 years.
Oh, yeah.
And I will tell you, the first couple of years out in practice, didn't have any kids yet. So it was a lot easier. I was able to focus all of my time in my life kind of went, sorry to go back a little bit, but undergrad, medical school, residency. And so it was 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of medical school.
At what point were you married?
5 years of residency. I did not meet my wife until I was in residency.
Okay.
I was older.
Okay.
I think we married at 30-ish.
Okay.
And then we had our first son, Anthony, at 32-ish.
Okay.
And I think my wife was 32 or 30. Yeah, I think she was 32 when we had him. And I didn't have my first job until I was 32, but I didn't take any time off. So I was so focused, laser focused on my career that I think the other aspects of my life really took a hit or they were on the back burner, right? So like my personal development, I think I was, I can use the word immature because I was probably just very selfish because I was like this, I have to get through undergrad, I have to get through med school, and then residency was the hardest part. It was like the military, getting through that. And then I had to do a fellowship. I didn't have to, but I chose to. So then the first 2 years after that, you're just like, all right, now it's me. I'm finally on my own after all these years. So I learned the surgical piece first. And then, I got married in 2008. So halfway through my residency, I think my 4th year of my residency. And my wife and I, we took a couple years before having kids, which I think was great. I would encourage.
Sure.
How long have you been married?
We got married last year, June 11th.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's my big thing that I tell people is like, I'm not trying to tell people what to do, obviously, but the one thing I really, really appreciated was that the fact that we had a couple years to focus on each other.
Sure.
And then the nuts and bolts of it though are like, you have to at some point set your priorities, right? And I did a lot of this personal reflection. My wife would ask me, who do you talk to? And I'd say, who do you mean? I talk to myself. And then 3 years ago, I finally got serious about talking to somebody, and I got a life coach.
Yeah.
Because I was just very overwhelmed.
Sure.
I have a wife. I have 3 young boys. I have a orthopedic practice that I'm running. So there's the business side of things. Then I'm a surgeon. And it was just, where's my priorities here? So Allison, my life coach, amazing woman, really kind of helped set this up for me. So it's God is at the top every time, all the time. Then it's I. And that may seem very selfish, but until you can get you good, you can't be good for your wife. You can't be good I can't be good for my boys. I can't be good for my patients, my staff. So it's God, I, we, meaning my wife is next. So oftentimes things get flipped, right? And you put your significant other before yourself.
Sure.
And that's may seem selfless and great and this and that, but if you're not giving yourself what you need, it's going to be hard to give your wife or your husband or whoever what they need. So, and then it goes to kids, right? And I will say that's the hardest thing right now in my life and my wife's life is you skip over these 3 things and you go right to the kids, and the kids are the first priority for everything.
Sure.
And we have to constantly remind ourselves that if we're not good, and I get frustrated at times, like even last night, I was just very short with the boys because they were misbehaving, and I just have to step back and just be like, all right, go take some time. And I just kind of walked away from the situation, quiet time, maybe meditate, say a prayer, whatever works for you. Then you can come back a lot more level-headed. And that is really physical fitness and wellness has been a major goal this past year for Karen and I. We have a trainer that comes in. So that's kind of what we're doing for us individually, but we get to do it together.
Awesome.
And so, yeah, I think it's just like putting things in perspective, making sure that you don't mix your priorities up. And I didn't even mention my work yet, right?
Sure.
I mean, that's down here,
Sure.
but that definitely consumes the most amount of my time,
Sure.
hands down. Like I'm at work more than I'm at home awake, right?
Sure.
Because when I come home, I'm home, but then you sleep for whatever you sleep.
Sure.
But it doesn't mean that the quality of the time that I give, because I try to give my boys a lot of quality time
Sure.
with coaching different sports that they have, but taking them to events, taking them to games, getting out of town with them. Like we love to travel.
That's
So
awesome.
That's one of the things that my wife and I love to do.
That's so neat. That's so neat. And do you do that just as often as you can, or?
So I started that tradition last year, the father son kind of trips. And it was a Christmas present. I said, guys, here's your Christmas present. Tina, we're going to Hornets Celtics game.
Cool.
Anthony, we're going to go to Chicago, and he loves cities too. So we would go 2 nights. So it's not just like in and out. It's 2 nights. We usually do at least one really, really nice dinner at like a nice steakhouse.
Oh.
And then we hang out. Maybe we go shopping. Maybe we go sightseeing. Like when we go to San Francisco to see the Warriors game with Santino, we're going to go to Alcatraz.
Cool.
He's a huge history guy. He loves that kind
Yeah,
of
I
stuff.
love it. That's neat.
And then Boston, we're going to hook up with Nathan
Cool.
Hager. We're going to obviously tour Boston, a very historic
Sure. Oh,
city. And
yeah.
so, yeah. Well, you want to flip the tables here so I can
Let's flip the table.
This-
Really
this is
good.
what I'm
Thanks
really
for your
excited
insight.
about.
That was awesome. Yeah, that was really cool.
So, business stuff first. Okay. So, I'm going to ask more than 3, too, by the way.
Okay.
Obviously, you grew up in a basketball household. I remember you, again, when you were the Yay High. Your dad was the assistant coach at Maplewood for many years. Actually, I got to show you basketball before you leave. Your dad signed that
How about that? Okay, cool.
way back in the day.
Neat.
It was one of the late 1980s teams. When were you born?
88.
Yeah. Okay. So this was probably you may have just been born when this was out. But who was your main influence into deciding this is what I'm going to do in my life?
Yeah. By far and away, my father, he just being around it so much. Definitely him. And then playing collegiately, being around the college coaches that I had. And again, I think a little bit of my story is I never had the college career that I probably envisioned in terms of stability and,
You're saying as a player?
I call it continuity, right? I never
Yeah.
was at a place for long enough. I bounced around. I never really flourished, even on the court. Like statistically, like I thought I would. Like I thought I would have that. But in hindsight, boy, what a tremendous experience because I played for so many different guys and was influenced by so many different coaches. So I think being able to see it at that level, at a certain point in time, I realized, I want to coach, but I'd also, my poor daddy, I realized a little bit of the nonsense that he had to go through at the high school level.
Yeah.
Whether it be parents or what have you.
That's my next question. But
yeah, so that's, I chose to do it, but my dad for sure, since then,
do you remember how old you were when you were like, I think I want to be a coach someday?
I think.
Because I'm sure at some point you want to be an NBA player, just like I did.
Of course. Yeah. So I'm not sure when that dream died, but it died eventually.
You still got some time, right?
Well, you never know. I could always flip the script. Yeah, I thought about playing today with our guys post practice, and then I watched the speed at which they were playing and thought, unless I want to see you in the surgery room, I should probably.
So if
stay
I
away.
decided to play with your team, I would make it about 30 seconds in, and I wouldn't need to see me. I'd need to see a cardiologist because
yeah, so
you guys go.
Yeah, we do. They play fast and they play hard, but yeah. So I don't know when exactly. I do know at one point in time throughout my college when I made that change when I transferred from Detroit to West Liberty. I had wanted to teach and coach at the high school
Yeah,
level.
you mentioned that.
So it was post that at some point. You know, I don't know exactly when, but
I mean, prior to that, did you have any things like aspirations of college coaching, or were you kind of like, my dad was a high school coach? You remember the Bill Hager, your experience that you saw? Were you kind of like, I'm going to coach high school and I'm going to teach?
yeah,
Like
that's
those-
I think it was so normal to me.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, well, this makes sense. I've seen this. What a great life that my father and mother lived. Like, this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
There's some stability there, right? There's less, there's more stability there than maybe at the college level. But yeah, at a certain point, I'll tell you when it probably was when I, got to be a graduate assistant and kind of started to get my feet wet in recruiting. Kind of fell in love with the recruiting piece and the recruiting aspect and the evaluation of going to find a needle in a haystack. You're trying to find this guy, and you have, it's wide open. You can search the world for a guy that fits your program and what
you
exactly
need
what you're looking for
at that time.
Correct.
Too,
Yeah.
right? Because
So-
it's not just, I want this player every single year, but like you're going to have different needs each season with what you lose.
Yeah, exactly right. So that was definitely what, thinking a little further on, that's probably what changed the course a little bit.
Is that ever intimidating to you? Because that would be like intimidating to me because I'm so competitive. I'd be like, you fall in love with that guy.
You
It's
do.
like, I got to get that guy.
Yeah,
But
tell
you got to
my-
balance. You can't put all your eggs in that basket, right?
Yeah, it's strange. It's funny. I like joke with my wife all the time. It's like you've fallen in love with these 17-year-old guys. You watch them play and you just become infatuated with their game and the type of people they are and
Yeah.
what you can forecast and foresee for them in their future. And you do. And it's like having a relationship and being broken up with at times, when you miss out. It is gut wrenching. I could tell you specific guys that I missed out on, where I was,
It's like
the way I felt.
It's like my surgical complications, right?
Correct.
You
Exactly.
remember those?
Unfortunately, it pains you, but fortunately for me, like we've been, it's the recruiting piece has been very natural. I'm very relational, very relationship driven.
Yeah.
So I think being able to have those relationships with these young guys, their families, go through that process of getting to know them.
I like
it's
what
been
you
a
mentioned
joy.
earlier. You said the type you can fall in love with these 17-year-old guys, the type of player they are, but then you also said the type of person that they are.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, again, I'm not counting questions. I'm going to be asking a lot of them. What type of person are you looking for?
Won't compromise on character. Just won't do it. Greatest joy, greatest takeaway, from winning a national championship which was the coolest basketball moment of my life.
Yeah.
But the greatest takeaway as I'm sitting there in the locker room was after they'd all cleared out and I sat there with my boss, my mentor. I didn't answer that question, but he'd be the second guy, Jim Crutchfield, my college coach, who became my, my boss and my colleague. But I just remember saying to him, what an amazing group of guys, like our 13 guys. It'd have been a pleasure to have every single one of them into your home, eating at your dinner table, and like the kind of guys you'd want your boys around, those kind of guys. So knowing that we were able to accomplish the goal with that type of human being is by far and away my greatest joy and takeaway from that experience, which was like, it can be done with good people. So if you can do it with good people, why would you do it any other way? So
Dude, I love that.
yeah, to answer your question, like I just won't compromise. So, but it's a lot of different things and they're not all the same and I don't want them to be all the same, right?
Right.
What fun would that be? So, but I want guys that know the difference between right and wrong. I want guys that put winning at the forefront, right? I want guys that treat people the right way. I want guys that, I like them to look at you in the eye when they sit across from you. I think there's something to be said for that. I like guys that when I'm watching them on film and I've got it on mute because my poor wife's sleeping beside me, but I've got it on mute, I can see them communicating without hearing the volume. I can see their body language and them communicating, whether it be with their hands, with their eye, with their head, what have you, with their body movements and motion. In the same light, I like guys that cheer for other people's successes. I think that's a huge determining factor for me, right?
It's
Like,
one of my biggest traits that I personally have, and because I'm a cheerleader,
Sure.
I love. That's why I'm wearing a freaking
I
Gannon
love
shirt
that,
right
by
now.
the way. I
right?
do, yeah.
No, seriously, I'm gonna come and watch you
Sure.
guys play a lot because I'm a huge basketball fan, but I've never gone to a Gannon game unless it was Mercer's Gannon game. But I'm gonna because love seeing young people successful people, people that are driven, people that have great character. And like you came to Gannon, you were recruited as the coach, signed, moved up here. It was all April time.
Sure.
It's barely December and you're 7-0.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you guys are like, your trajectory's through the roof. How the hell did you do that?
Yeah.
How many guys did you have return from a previous squad? How many guys did you recruit? How did you recruit between April and the beginning of the school year? How did you do that?
Super loaded question. Cool. Probably one of the coolest periods of my life when I think back now. And I guess I'm still kind of transitioning through it, but the whirlwind that it was, because everybody asks the question. I've been asking a million times and I appreciate people asking it, but nobody asks about what about the administrative piece? Like, what about hiring 2 full-time assistant coaches and then figuring out a way to move them and their families?
I never even, is that your responsibility?
Yeah. So
that's not like the AD's job?
No. Yeah. So
I had no idea about that. So I wouldn't even know to ask that question.
Right. Yeah. So it's
I
just
assume
like,
that they're like, maybe you give some input, but like you're not logistically the one that's responsible for all that.
Yeah, no. So brand new staff. So had to go hire. The first thing I did is, so I'd back up. The easiest way to explain it would be in recruitment, right? You're constantly keeping tabs on guys. Like we had signed a young man early at Nova Southeastern, had our eyes on some guys. So when the transition took place, at a certain point in time, I'm now, first of all, shaking hands, making sure I clean up all loose ends at Nova. But then at some point in time, you transition. Yeah. And when you transition,
you're now the head coach at Gannon.
And you're starting to recruit for Gannon. And I love Nova Southeastern, but I love Gannon more. And so
you got your loyalties, right? That's for sure.
Yeah. So you've got to start to build. So like throughout that process, you've got this pool of guys. Like I've got lists right now. We've got the A list, we've got the B list, we've got the C list. And you start to vet through those guys and you circle back on some guys that maybe weren't guys that you had, pinpointed as being guys for Nova, but then, they might work at Gannon. And quite frankly, the cupboard was just so bare and trying to, figure out. So I guess first things first was figuring out who's returning, right? Which guys.
Yeah. So how many guys are on your team now?
5 returners and we have 9 newcomers. So
wow.
Yeah, in that span of time, we signed 8. They had signed 1 previously before we got there. We signed 8 guys. Hired
the 5 returners. Were there any non-returners that are still at Gannon?
No, there's no non-returners that are still at Gannon. Most of them they made my job a little bit easier on me in that, like, when everybody's different, but when you take over a new program, I guess the easiest thing would be, at least from my viewpoint, would be kind of starting clean slate, right? Yeah. And like getting to sign your guys. If you're a guy that likes to recruit like me, you've got all these guys in the hopper and you're not fearful of going to have to, having to sign 14 guys. So for me, it was like clean slate would have been the easiest way to do it maybe, but I was fortunate that the 5 guys that decided to return are really good people. And I made sure of that. So
you didn't have to dismiss anybody.
We had to, there was some stuff that had, guys that had,
yeah, you don't need to go into details.
But like there were some guys that were kind of on their way out because of some, regardless of me, right? Yeah. Regardless of me and my situation. So kind of like shook hands and went our separate ways with a couple different young guys. But for the most part, those guys wanted to be a part of this thing. And those were the guys that we were kind of vetting through. Like,
did they know what they were getting in the coach? Did they do any?
I think everything is so accessible nowadays. Like I think they did some research. I don't know that fully they understood like the style and the demands of the style, but I'm sure they did a little bit of research just like I did on them. I would hope that they did, But yeah, it was just a whirlwind. Hired the 2 just phenomenal young guys. You talk about good people, man. Talk about
assistants now.
Easton Mazzoli is young guy that's from Western Pennsylvania. Also, he's a Seneca Valley guy.
Okay,
was at a school in Tennessee, Union University, with his wife and his young daughter, and so full time down there. Had to make that move. So obviously, I just feel a certain kind of way about Easton.
Him?
We actually recruited him for a year when I was a grad assistant that first year at West Liberty. So I knew of him.
Okay,
and stayed in contact a little bit. he actually was in our region down there in the South region. So we played each other. It would have been in the round of, I guess, 32 in the NCAA tournament. The one year they were at our place, and we beat them on a buzzer beater, and so kind of reconnected there.
Sure.
And kind of had my eyes on him as like a young guy. I'm sure like in your world, in our world, it's just such a small world. Everybody knows
It's
each other.
relationships.
So I knew a lot of people that knew him as well. I knew he was a guy I wanted to go after. So hired him, hired our second assistant, Mayo Baxter Bell, he's a Ohio guy, had a really good career at Liberty University, but same thing, just phenomenal young guy, can really play, can still play. They both can. But just the kind of people that not only you want it like in your program, but the kind of people that Erie wants
In the community.
in this community, like those kind of dudes. So just phenomenal guys. And then we went to work and we were all over the place. We were signed our first kid, actually sight on seeing a young guy, Mason Bennett, who's a freshman on our team now. I'd kind of been courting him, recruiting him a little bit, and just knew when I saw him, I knew he was a guy, like if we had the opportunity to take, you talk about that grit that you mentioned earlier of growing up. He is just a gritty kid. So we took him like, he's got to be here, and he was the first one. And then the dominoes started to fall. We drove down to Alexandria, Virginia, actually hadn't hired Mayo yet, but Mayo was at West Liberty. So Issa and I hop in the car, we drive down to Alexandria, and on the way we stop at a young guy's place named Mike Montano, who's now a freshman for us. And we got Mike to commit, got Mayo on board, drove back up, and on the way we're just...
Are you starting to feel energy building?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's just, the recruiting is just, it's, when it's good, it's good.
I'm
Sometimes
getting kind of excited just...
I know.
Like
It's like, all right, and you're looking positionally of like what we think we might need. All the while we're watching film of these 5 returners thinking, what void can he fill? Can he do this? Can he do this? What might we need now? And you're racing against the clock, right? And all the while you're, just like you talked, and probably why I asked you that question, you're just trying to juggle. We're trying to sell a home in South Florida. I'm trying to figure out what my wife's going to do professionally and what her move is going to look like, and trying to figure out the logistics of like.
But you were just
selling,
hired,
buying,
right? You were hired to
yeah.
create a successful program, which, I mean, in short order you have.
Those first few days, I mean, I'd argue like those first few days on the job were as important as tomorrow will be for me, which it'll be a very important day. We have practice. I'm scouting for next Wednesday, probably on the road recruiting tomorrow night. Like, it'll be a very important day. Tomorrow, I would argue, is probably not as important as maybe that one of the days within that first 3 week span, if that makes sense. The way those days carried was just instrumental on whatever we did those first few weeks was going to have just a dramatic impact
domino effects.
Right now,
exactly.
right on today and winning. And so what product we can put on the floor, what kind of guys we can
So
get,
it wasn't like,
so
I'm going to celebrate my new job.
Not for a second.
You were just,
not for 1 second.
It's time to go to work.
All day, yeah. Every second of every day.
Dude, I love it.
Yeah.
We're cut from the same cloth. So this next one, what do you call, this is going to be like a segment of this podcast, by the way. It's the style of play, the Coach Jordan Fee style of play. This is multiple questions. All right. Number one, where did you get that? Was it a style that you were coached into playing? Because that was not how Coach Don Fee coached.
Not even,
teams. It's almost the exact opposite from what I remember.
Correct.
Like
We
very
call it,
defensively oriented.
Oh, yeah. Very, very different.
Move the ball.
Yeah. Just wear it out, pass it a million times.
Yeah, and they'll make a mistake. The defense will eventually make a mistake.
Yeah, correct. So we call it the system, and anybody that's a part of the system. And now I believe there's,
Did you coin that phrase?
I don't know.
I mean, did you learn that otherwise? Did anyone else ever say this is what we're going to call the system?
We've never said it. We've always just, we've never coined it and said, this is what we're going to call it. It's just, we always have called it that.
Who's we?
So Jim Crutchfield was my college coach. At some point in time, I'm sure he said the system, and then everybody else just copycatted it, and he is the guy. I mean, he's the beauty of this thing is.
So you played for him, or were an assistant under him, or both?
So both.
Okay.
Yeah. So out of high school, I was recruited a little bit by a guy named Eric Bavard, the head coach at Chaminade now in Hawaii.
Okay.
Eric is a part of the system. He's a system guy. So he was Jim Crutchfield's assistant at West Liberty. The system started. The beauty of it, though, is Coach took the job, much like this job. He had took over, I think, a 4-win team.
Okay.
And he said,
how many wins did Gannon have last year?
3. Yeah.
So you've more than doubled that in your first
So,
7
yeah.
games.
So, but regardless, he began this. He said, "We're going to play differently," and he had done some research and started, and so created the system, and it's just. I mean,
But you didn't go. Was this at West Liberty?
correct.
You played at U of D prior to that, and you
8-10.
played the Air Force.
Prior to that,
yeah.
So this was the last stop.
So you weren't coming out of high school saying, "I want to go to a coach that coaches the system."
Correct.
It just kinda
sheer,
happened.
sheer luck. Yeah,
Yeah.
sheer luck.
And
I
when you
was-
got there and you played under it, were you like, "This sucks"?
No, it was like the only thing that sucked about it was like that I felt like, again, you mentioned the word immature at the time. I was very immature. And I had been a guy that, the year before was playing at Hinkle Fieldhouse against Butler, who was in the national title game, and like playing. I didn't have a huge role, but I have enough of a role where I felt like I was a Division I player, and I thought it was far better than I was. And then I dropped down a level to a Division II school, thinking I'm gonna walk in here and be the man, and that certainly wasn't the case. They had these guys that were veterans and had been established. So had I been, again, hindsight's 2020, and I wouldn't change it, but I probably would have had a better college career had I went to West Liberty
From the
out
get-go?
the get-go.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
Because you had to change your style,
You did,
right?
Yeah, and
Had you ever played that style before?
Not even close. I mean, nothing. It was like nothing I'd ever seen. And it was hard to. The only reason it made sense was because he had then, like the 2 years prior to me getting there, they had started to win, and win at such a high rate that it was just hard to argue against. So, like my first year there, I'll screw this up, but we were like, I think we were maybe 30-1 my first year, and then the next year it was like, maybe 29-2 or 29-3. So we went Elite 8, Final 4, and then the last year was a grad assistant Elite.
I remember seeing
Final
your
4.
CV. Your teams were the highest scoring teams in the country.
Yeah, and have been since.
I
Right?
mean,
like
112 points a game
Yeah, correct.
was one of them, and one
Yeah.
was just over 100.
Yeah.
Like you would see 100-point games when I would go to see local, Mercier, Edinburgh, Gannon, maybe once in a blue moon, right?
If you got to an overtime, or if it's just a kind of a sloppy,
And it was
fast-paced
just like,
game or whatever.
wow, we got
Yeah.
100 points, and you never saw a high school game go to 100 points.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So to see this, how long as a player did it take for you to buy into it? Was it
Quick because of, again, it's success.
The winning?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just couldn't argue
winning
against
helps
it.
everything?
Yeah, he's and now, I mean, he was actually at some point while he was at West Liberty, he garnered this title, but he's the winningest coach in the history of college basketball. His percentage, I think it's any men's NCAA head coach that's been coaching 10 years or more. He has the highest winning percentage.
What is it?
John Wooden, Krzyzewski, you name it, all these guys.
Better than theirs.
Better than all of them.
Well,
It's like 80.
I was going to say 83-ish.
Higher. It's like 88. It's like 87,
Holy
86, somewhere
Lord.
in there. Yeah. And
So
it continues
to lose a
get-
game is pretty rare.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
especially
losing like
lately.
1 out of 10.
Not even.
And that's
Yeah.
a really good season when
Yeah.
you put those numbers
I mean,
all together.
Yeah. I mean, especially recently, I'd say not even, but not, just recently, there's just been such an amount of winning that's just hard to explain. So again, it's
So
just,
the system obviously works.
Yeah.
Were you ever kind of like, well, I feel like I have to ask
Sure.
this question first.
it's a fair one.
What is the system? Can you just explain without giving the secret sauce away? Like,
Yeah.
because for our viewers that haven't seen your team play, I know what the system is.
Sure.
I don't know the ins and outs of it, but you explain it.
Trying to just create a different game, whereas a normal game, there's these ebbs and flows and this high points, low points, and it just continues that way throughout the game. We're trying to create a game that is linear, that is, we're trying to keep constant pressure on the defense. When we're on offense, by the way, we play offensively. And then on the flip side, when we're on defense, we're trying to create and keep constant pressure on the opposing team on the offense. So that's like the short gist of it. And obviously there's 1,000 more intricacies to it, but that's the gist of what it is. It's just we're trying to create a different level of play.
So this was my one game experience watching the system and play, but this was if I had to give it a summary, like I went home
Anxious
and I
to hear
said,
this.
Dad, I was like, you got to come up and see this. And I invited him up before. He didn't come up. My nephew, Nathan,
Okay, yeah.
who you should talk to that kid some more.
Yeah.
He's a huge basketball nut,
Okay.
just graduated from Cambridge, was a good baller.
Cool.
He's obviously tall, but we watched this. I'm like, I had heard a little bit about it. And then I got to see it in person. I was like, here's my analysis. It is, I hate to say I went 110% because that's not really a thing, but
Yep.
these guys are going 110% and they know that they're not going to be in there probably longer than 2 or 3 minutes. And then there's a whole new like line that comes out. It's almost like hockey. And they're going to go 110% for 2 or 3 minutes. Chaos is not the word because it sounds like it's just like a free for all. It's not.
Great point.
I almost feel like it's organized chaos, but
Correct.
my impression is you're trying to create chaos for the when you're on defense. So they're full court pressing. As soon as the ball gets in, they're trapping that. And like as a player, I just remember like when the end of the game, you press for like the last minute or two, or if it was close, you would be like, oh my God, we're pressing. And like, you know how to break it, but these guys are so fresh and so much energy and they're on you. They create, my guess is you probably get 7 to 8 turnovers per game on your press, whether it's a steal, whether it's a bad pass out of bounds, whether it's something.
Sure.
Maybe 6 to 8 would be. Do you know the number?
Yeah, even more. You know,
Is it?
oh yeah. I don't know what it is right now. I think we are leading the.
Do you have a target like 10?
We
or-
don't have a target, but we always say we want to be plus 10 in turnover margin.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we've turned it over too many times. I think we played East Stroudsburg. We turned them over 29 times. Yeah, I mean we're leading in the country in fast break points at the moment, but we've
I guess I'm not talking just turnovers in general.
Sure.
I'm talking like before they even get the ball over half court.
sure.
I feel like you're getting at least 6 to 8
Sure.
turnovers, like a steal on an inbounds play,
yeah.
or the first pass after the inbounds, you're stealing it.
Yeah.
I felt like that was happening a lot. The other style offensively, I felt like once you got that turnover, whoever had the ball, you're able to be the point guard. It's like, go, just go.
That's good analysis. You're right. I mean, we are trying to create a system of, and a lot, I don't want to say equal opportunity, but we are positionless basketball, right? So if we're following the rule of constant pressure, the second we get a steal, barring some kind of unique circumstance, late game, we're trying to hold for a last second shot, whatever, barring some circuits outside of that, we are looking to keep constant pressure on the defense. To keep constant pressure on the defense, the second you get that steal without delay, you're looking to attack.
Yeah.
Right. So there is no delay. There's no traditional
So
basketball.
like set it up, get it to the point
Get it
guard.
to the point guard. There's none of that. We don't have numbers in our system.
Just have positions. Like, I mean, like spreading the floor.
Yeah, like we'll teach a motion offense, and we kind of let guys gravitate towards their strengths. So
Right.
easier.
Who's number
than-
24?
I'm awful with numbers. Zach Hobbs is a transfer from Indiana State.
Yeah.
Shooter.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
my guy, man.
Yeah, he's a great kid.
I fell in love with that guy quick, and I was just like, dude, that's my guy.
Yeah.
I would have loved to play your style of basketball, at least offensively, because
Yeah.
I was a shooter.
Were
but
you? Yeah.
but defensively, I can see. But I was also that kind of player that I needed to be out there because I was a rhythm player.
Yep.
And I feel like when Nathan, my nephew, and I were there, he goes, "Boy, you have to be selfless on this team, and you have to really embrace
point.
this style.
Yeah.
But if you do, your success is through the roof. Your
Sure.
winning percentage obviously speaks that. Your mentors, but man, like the guy that is like, I need the ball every time down the floor, get the ball to me, clear out. That doesn't even exist.
Sure.
So
does
I
not.
love it though. I love.
Well, I
the
appreciate it, and
system.
I do. I appreciate your interest in it. I'll tell you this: I'm a fan just as much as you. You know, I really am. Like, I'm a fan of the system. I watch. I mentioned Coach Crutchfield, who again I probably haven't given enough credit to, but like he's the guy. He created this. He has a little bit of a tree. There's a
I was
guy.
gonna say, is there disciples that are
Yeah,
going out?
there's a guy named Devin Hearn that's at Bluefield State University, young head coach there. There's a guy named Mike Lamberti that's at Coker College University. I'm not sure.
So are you
in
guys
South
going to maybe
Carolina.
meet up?
Well, ironically, you may not have known this part, but so last year in the national championship game, we played West Liberty in the final.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'll have to send you the link.
So
You'd enjoy watching the game.
Was that a
We were just
system coach
experienced-
that took over at West Liberty?
Yeah, yeah. So was my assistant. One guy had left. Ben Hallett is his name. Came in, took over, and just continued the winning. Did a phenomenal job there. His assistant Mike Lamberti is now at Coker.
What was the final
Mike
score?
was the highest scoring game in NCAA history. It was 111-101.
For a national championship game, you
yeah.
say?
Yep.
Wow.
So Yeah, it was crazy. Just ironic. You can imagine looking up there. All my college teammates were there. Some of them wearing West Liberty stuff. A couple wearing actually Nova stuff. A couple of my closer friends. And there were some kind of, I still remember seeing them sit up in the middle and they were wearing just average clothes, no logos on them, just trying to be neutral. But a very weird experience. But again, I think it's just more proof to the system. It's garnered a lot of attention. It always had legs, but far more so since the national championship game. And, guys like Coker, I think right now we're 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the country in scoring. Us, Nova Southeastern, West Liberty University, and Coker University are 1, 2, 3, 4, and not just scoring, but a handful of categories. So it's very strange. It's very weird. Even for me, I mean, sometimes I take myself out of it. Like, I don't even know how this works sometimes myself,
Well, that's like me with doing surgery. I'm like, I'll take a step back. I'm like, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah.
We're cutting these people. We're chopping the ends of their bones off and we're putting metal and plastic in there. Like, can you imagine the first surgeon that decided to do this, but it wasn't metal, it was like wood.
Sure.
And the patient, how did you convince this patient that, hey, let me cut you open.
Sure.
I'm going to whack the ends of your bones off because your knee hurts really bad.
Sure.
And I'll make it feel better because I'm going to put these materials in there. Like, sign me up. No, thank you.
Sure.
Right. Like,
You're
let me
exactly
see the
right.
success first. But like, there's obviously a lot of success. So what's it like for like your dad or some of your other, people that grew up around you coming to watch you with this style of play? Are they like, what are you doing? Or do they just know enough that it works?
I mean, I think the first answer to that question is like, what it's like is probably very rewarding for them, but not as rewarding for them it is for me. There's nothing cooler to me than like watching my high school buddies who now have kids and their boys are on the ride. I'm getting texts constantly from, Astorino texts me a picture of his son Brooks, and his son Brooks got the Gannon poster on his wall. Like, that stuff is far more rewarding. For me.
Tino got 13 autographs that night. It's
he
up in his
counted it
room.
Up
in his
up.
room.
Yeah, and that stuff like that to me is far more rewarding than, than the flip of it. But I think they've seen it long enough. Like, they followed my career at West Liberty. Then they followed.
So it wasn't
games
like, what is this?
It's kind of like they know what we do now.
Yeah.
And this is the brand of basketball they like to watch and follow. But I'm just.
Does your dad like watching it?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Is it kind of tough for him though? Because
it's
like,
I probably should ask him the question. I'm not sure I've ever asked him. I think I should say, would you rather us play a different way? And he might answer yes.
Yeah.
He is so traditional and maybe a little bit different. But again, he saw so much success, guys like him and Bill Hager, that they played a different way, but there was 1,000 different ways to win.
Yeah,
and
that's more than one way to skin a cat, right?
Correct. So like, is this the way that he would do it now if he had to start all over again? I don't know. I've never asked him the question. I might have to ask him when I see him.
Yeah.
But
we interrupt this episode of Hey Saw Bones to surprise Coach Jordan Fee. He has never asked his father the question, so we decided to go ahead and ask his dad the question for him.
It's a fun way to play, and it's fun for the players. I think it's a fast-paced way to play, and a lot of teams can't play that way. And I know we did it, at Maplewood. We pressed teams and put pressure to basketball. And I know Bill and I went to Bobby Knight's clinics, and even though they were not a pressing team, they still pressured the basketball in the half court. And it was a lot about defense. Bobby Knight's team holding teams under 50 points a game. This is a totally different style. And even though they score a lot of points, their emphasis is on their defensive pressure and really trying to up-tempo style. And it's about creating more possessions. And I've seen teams, when Jordan was an assistant with Crutchfield, I've watched teams, hang, and then they would just collapse, and then all of a sudden there'd be like a, 10-0 run, and it would go from 10 to 20 in a heartbeat, and the bottom would kind of fall out. So that's kind of the style and the idea of the thing. And like I said, it's a fun way to play for the players. And if you get the right kind of guys in that system, it can be very successful.
And then the 3-point line totally changed the game. And to add to what Jordan is doing and what his coach did for years, amazing, and won the national championship last year, Division II, is they shot a ton of threes. And then plus the full court man-to-man pressure, I think, is just tremendous. But this is years ago. Jordan went to West Lib, played for Crutchfield, and I'd go down with Don, and we'd even go to some practices and some games And we were amazed at the pressure they put on and the shooting of the threes. And Nick was at Bethany coaching, and they scrimmaged West Lib one time. And Crutchfield got his team there an hour before the game, and all they did for an hour was shoot threes. I said, wow, no wonder they're so darn good at shooting the threes. But I think the 3-point line and their full court pressure, I think their full court pressure is tremendous. And back in when Jordan was playing for him and then assistant, that I put more emphasis on pressing and ran a lot of, I mean, we pressed every day in practice. And then we'd always put the JVs up 15, 8 minutes on the clock. And now we're gonna try to come back. And every point we come back and won by, the JVs had to run half of a suicide. But you know, Don and I go way back. He was my assistant back at Maplewood, got the phys ed job, and we had a lot of fun coaching together. And then he broke my heart and left and went to Grove City, you know, and became the head coach down there. And then I went temporarily insane, took a job in Jamestown, New York, and then finally got back to Pennsylvania in a year and coached at Franklin. Then we went to head a few times. You know, we had a lot of fun coaching against each other. And so it was good stuff.
If I hadn't had so much fun coaching with you for those 8 years, I'd have had a lot more wins at the varsity level, maybe.
I'd have left a little earlier, huh?
I think there's times where he probably feels like, boy, it looks undisciplined, and these shots are kind of wild, and you're flowing strictly off of momentum.
Man, when I was seeing some of these shots like 10 feet beyond the free throw,
probably wonder, like, what are these guys doing? You know, they're just chucking shots, but there's a method to it. And our guys, and we talk about knowing the difference between a good and a great shot. And great shot for one guy might not be a great shot.
Yeah,
it's just not an equal opportunity offense, you know. So,
exactly. Number 24, I think, has a green light to pretty much. He gets over half court. It's like if there's not a defender within 3 feet, is he able to shoot it?
I've yet to tell him don't shoot it. He's smart enough. I trust him enough to where like he'll make the right decision, you know. And if he does, if he's taking a bad one, he'll be the first to say, "Hey, I could probably get a better one." But again, it's part of I think the trust that the system breeds. There's so much unselfishness with it, right? To do it, you can't be a selfish guy. So through that, I think you build this congruency maybe, and you build this, you build a trust in one another. So I think it's like, I don't need to take this one because I'll give it up. I'm going to get it back.
Yeah.
You know, and there's that.
Right.
So
there's no ball hogs. When I was never ever thinking like, this is the guy that's taking 80% of the shots. But so my next question is, I asked Jamie Plunkett this same question. You run a kind of a hockey style offense, right? It's lines. It's like 5 in, 5 out, 5 in, 5 out.
Sure.
For the most part.
Sure.
Do you balance those two lines, or are you looking at this line and saying, well, this guy and this guy play really good together because they kind of know each other? Like those Jordan Pippen, they knew Mahomes, Kelsey.
Yeah.
That you played again with players, and my point guard and I in high school were on the same wavelength.
Sure.
I knew where he'd be looking that way, and I'm like, I gotta have my head on a swivel. And I knew where to go. I knew how the ball was coming to me. He knew how I liked it. Are you matching guys up? Are you balancing the lineup up? Are you putting your best 5 in your first 5? How do you do that?
It's a little bit of just trial and error. You know, it really is. I think the easy way to answer would be it's a bit of balance, right? But it's definitely telling these guys, like I'm telling these guys, I'm looking for 5 guys that complement one another. A lot of times in the first wave, like we'll call them waves, like the first wave, you want guys that can get out of the gate. So you want a really, really good pressing group. We've had in the past, not so much on this group, but we've had in the past a couple guys that we felt like weren't our strongest defenders, but they were lethal scorers. And sometimes, although they may be one of our best 5 players, we didn't start them.
Yeah.
We can sneak them in a few minutes into the game when the opponent's tired, and you can kind of like you know, maybe a 6 man in the NBA, you could sneak that guy in for just a injection of
any other
scoring
team.
punch
He's probably their
and
star.
energy. Correct. Yeah. So yeah, it's a give and take. Like for instance, I give an example. We've got 4 older guys. We have 4 graduate transfers this year, and there's 3 of them on the first wave, and one of them's on the second wave. And the guy that's on the second wave he's a phenomenal player and kid, but he's a guy that I felt like he's a big time communicator, and there's a lot of nuances that he can he can cover.
So he's kind of like
that
the
aren't even
leader
his
of
stat
that.
sheet. Yeah, and he's just like he can get loose a little bit. He's a great offensive threat, so I kind of feel like him with that second group a little bit. He's got some more freedom to be more of who he is,
Yeah.
right? And he's a good separator, whereas some of the other guys are maybe more of connectors with that first group. So it's constantly it's changed and evolved, but it's I would say this: it's never part of the. Depending on the year we've played this, we call it the platoon system. So some years we've done this where we've got
You got
5
two
in,
names for it
5
now?
out.
The platoon and the system?
Well, the system is the system. The platoon is the 5 in, 5 out.
Oh, okay. Got it.
So platoon system is 5 in, 5 out. And with platooning, it definitely gives you some of what you talked about, but it can take away sometimes from keeping your best 7, 8 guys on the court. So we've also sometimes transitioned away from that. It's a whole lot. I'll tell you this: it's a whole lot easier to coach when you're just playing 7 or 8 guys. It just is on a coach, right? You're trying to make these decisions. It's easier when you kind of know, like, all right, I've got these 3 guys to fill these 2 spots. This is 1 and 2, if you want to call them that. And I've got these 3 guys fill these 2 spots, and then whatever. I've got these 2 guys are interchangeable at the 5 or whatever that might be. It's easier to coach that way. A little tougher when you're doing this, and all of a sudden you're like, it's not working. We need to break off and do something else.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to figure out, okay, which parts are going to make it work.
Are you like, okay, I got this line, this line.
Yeah.
Is that what you're calling them? Or waves?
We call them waves.
So this wave and this wave is kind of generally how we start in our second crew. It's not working. Are you like, all right, I'm going to take 3 from this first and 2 from the second, even though the 2 were just out there
Yep.
and they're probably tired?
Yeah.
Is that after a timeout?
Yeah, it's the same thing you would do.
Because you can't just do it without a timeout because you're changing your system.
We have. It's just a complete feel thing. It really is. And I've been fortunate to be around it so long now that like you would have a feel in the operating room. It's a total feel thing. It really
You're
is.
like abort. I need
what
to mix
is
it
this
up a little
working?
bit.
Or it's the opposite. It's like so many guys who want to adopt the system, and there's thousands of them. And I'm so humbled when they reach out to whomever it is, any of us that do it. They want to adopt the style, and then they start to do it, and it's very uncomfortable, right? And I've been in and around it long enough to where I know sometimes I can feel maybe the body blow. Sure, I can maybe feel the body blows that it's producing that you may not be able to feel as the casual fan, but all of a sudden, second half, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Second half, it's a tie ball game until the 6-minute mark of the second half. And all of a sudden we go on a quick 12-2 mini run because they're absolutely gassed and tired. And it's just that we call them blackouts, but it's that one mini blackout where.
So is that your run?
Yeah. A blackout would be a run when
like
it gets
you're,
crazy.
If you're the one doing the running.
Correct. And it's a blackout. It's a quick, you can barely remember what happened, and it's just a quick, and blackouts can be different. Sometimes it's a 5-0 run. I've seen, we've had 32 runs that have blackouts that have spanned through timeouts called and such.
Wow.
But it's a remarkable way, but I'm genuinely just a lucky guy that fell into a right spot at the right time, adopted this thing, and then I've been fortunate enough thus far to have a group of guys that are just like hyper willing to do it and want to win. And I now think that probably the thing we've got going for us is they know that this is the way for us. If we're going to win, it's going to be because we do this really well.
Oh, you got them in now.
Yeah.
You got them dialed in.
So, but yeah, it's a fun way to play. And the hard part, we call everything else normal basketball. So I'm a basketball junkie. I love, my wife and I will go to games or watch games on TV. I do like watching normal basketball, but not as much as I like watching us or Nova Southeastern or West Liberty or Coker University, Bluefield State University,
So
and such.
this probably would never work in the NBA just because you've got too many egos, right?
It's funny. We've been super fortunate. Again, kind of being a part of the system. I've been afforded so many cool opportunities. We had Eric Spoelstra had come down, and he actually came down twice. He brought his whole staff.
Wow.
And so Spoelstra comes down and
to like learn a little bit about the system.
yeah, that's the question.
That's really freaking
I don't know
cool.
how to answer. So he brought up his whole staff. He brought up Karan Butler and I forget his name, his other assistant that played at Notre Dame, and his whole staff.
Was Haslam there? Because he was like a
Haslam didn't come.
coaching assistant, right?
Was it Kyle? What the heck is his name? The shooter that was at Notre Dame, and now he's been
Kyle
with-
Korver.
No, doesn't matter. But So he came up, and Brad Stevens at the time was with the Celtics and had invited Coach to come up to a private clinic up there. So it started to gain legs. We led the country in scoring, and this podcast got out. He did a pod. He's not a podcast guy, but he did a podcast, and word started to get out, spread. The winning continued to happen. West Liberty continued to win, and people were like, "What's this secret?" So I completely lost my train of thought. I can't remember what the original question was, but I think we're talking about like
the NBA. Just like could the NBA ever adopt this?
When these
style?
guys came, our question was the same one you asked, which is like, why are these NBA guys? First of all, what are they going to learn from us? You know, these are the brightest minds in the world. What are they going to learn from us? And then secondly is I'm not even sure that this would work in the league. So what can they really gain from us? And a lot of what they wanted to know, which is, and again, other college coaches, Larry Nega came up and spent the day with us. Dusty May at Florida Atlantic had us up to scrimmage, and he's prying, asking questions, and like, there's not a real secret to it. You know, it is kind of, you see what you see, and there's nuances and stuff that we probably don't share. Yeah. But you know, it is what you see. I mean,
are your practices just like a ton of conditioning?
We play more than the average team, but I'm also very aware, and my boss was always very aware of like the burnout factor and the wear out factor. So we're very cognizant of that. I think the best thing we did throughout the year last year was we were still lifting 3 and sometimes 4 days a week throughout the season. Now, a lot of that is just like light. You're doing like a lot of prehab work and recovery.
You're saying as opposed to practicing?
When we practice, it's a lot of live. You know, like the skill development, we probably spend less time on skill development in season than most teams do, I'd say.
Okay.
But we also we scout less than other teams. So we're not walking through like what we might have done in high school, right?
Because it doesn't really matter, right? I mean, you're playing the system.
Yeah. I mean, there's certain things, we don't want to be ignorant to it. Like I'll know everything that they do. It doesn't mean I'll share it with our guys though.
Right.
Right. But so I'll give our guys far less than the next team typically. But if we do what we do and we do it really well, it matters more about the time and attention to just that than it does to our opponent. So I want to know personnel. We talk about KYPL, like know your personnel. We want to know personnel, but we care far less about every little nuance, every set play they run, where they're going to be.
So if you're playing a team, have you ever gotten to a position where you're like, oh, I don't think we can do the system. We need to go back to regular basketball. Has that ever happened?
Well, the night before the national championship game, 2 nights before the national championship game, we were sitting there. You can imagine the feeling we're feeling, which is like the only other team that in the country at that time. So that was doing it to the level we felt like we were doing it. Just in all honesty, was West Liberty. So they win a semifinal. We win a semifinal. We're sitting there in this ballroom, and we're sitting around like, what are we going to do? You know, what do we change? Do we try to alter or adjust?
It's like, you know, the best offense playing the best offense, right? Sure. But it's also the best defense playing against the best defense. It's your strengths are the same as theirs, and I don't know if there's a weakness per se, but
I'm sure you could find one. But it was the what we came out of that boardroom thinking was like, we just got to do what we do really well. We just got to do it better than them on that day. You know,
and tomorrow they may do it better than you, but like
that's what we do.
You can't reinvent yourself for
now.
one day.
Right? So do we adjust? Yeah. I mean, have there been times where you've gotten away from it? Have we played zone? It's whatever is going to work. You know, whatever is going to work, meaning whatever is going to win. If that means playing 5 guys for 40 minutes and playing a zone, we'll do that. But it's not what we're trained to do. It's not what we're at least.
Well, you're 7-0, right? So
we are.
And you have you had to go away from Gannon? Have you had to ever go away from the system?
Slightly. We had one game where slightly we went to we varied the pressure and kind of where it came
Gary
from.
Miller finals?
It was, yeah.
I didn't make it that night. I was at the game before.
Big physical team with really good guards.
I just saw the score was under 100.
Yep.
Not far off under 100, but it was close.
Correct. So we varied it just a little bit. But again, even in that game, if you go back and watch it, like the body blows of the system, eventually they gave us just enough of, you didn't notice it early on, but I think they paid dividends down the stretch where.
I love that analogy, that boxing analogy.
It is, yeah.
Because you can only take so many hits, right?
And it just wears on them. And again, it's just something that you can't see necessarily with your eyes unless you've been a part of it and kind of notice certain nuances. Like I'll watch guys and I can see just their their body language and how it changes. I can feel a defense, maybe the first possession of the game when they're guarding us, and I can feel the the velocity or whatever you want to call it, like how ferocious it is. And then you can fast forward. I look at it like we're 5 minutes in the second half, and I'm like, this isn't the same defense that I felt that first possession of the game. Why is that? You know?
Or sometimes at first possession you feel apprehension because
Sure.
I would think if I was playing against your team, I'd be scared. I would be because you know what's coming and you're like, shit.
Yeah.
This isn't going to be that like I can relax on defense. I can do this. I can do that. There's
Right.
no relaxing in your style of play.
If we're doing it right. Yeah. If we're doing it right.
Right. God, I mean, just getting the ball in, right? Like that would be, again, that's panic time for a lot of
Sure.
offenses. And there's ways to break the press, obviously, but the intensity you guys are going at. And then if they turn the ball over, they know you guys are coming hard and fast. So it's like, shit, I don't even get a break for
Sure.
a millisecond to like gather my thoughts of like, I just turned the ball over. Usually it's like, all right, they're going to set their offense up now. You
Sure.
guys are coming down and shooting within what's your average shot
Oh,
clock?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know that we'd ever gathered any analytics on it. It's
I bet you
quick.
you'd use less than 10 seconds.
I know this sometimes when like, if let's say we drag it out for whatever reason, team has a good defensive stand and we get out like with under 10 seconds, I can feel I can feel our guys and how uncomfortable they are. But it's like, fellas, we still got 10 whole seconds. We got a third of the shot.
Yeah, they're just
clock
not
still.
used to that, right?
They're not used
It's
to
like the
that,
opposite.
playing
They're
every day.
shooting is it a 35
It's
second?
30, yeah.
30.
So they're just very
it barely
uncomfortable.
never makes it to 20.
We actually
you
had our
guys.
first. Let's see. We had a shot. We had our first shot clock violation of the year. Was it at East Stroudsburg? And
How many suicides did you make them run for that?
no, none of those. But we, it's different. It's a different style. I'm not surprised that you're kind of enamored with it. And I appreciate the fact that you are because I am too. I am too.
Yeah.
And I'm a fan of it. I really am. Like it's fun to watch and script. And again, it's also why I struggle. Like I have a lot of friends in coaching who they want to have coaching conversations. And like, if we want to talk strategy, I struggle to have conversations with guys that aren't playing this way because it's so non-traditional. And different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not good or bad one way or another. It's just my interest now is this.
Yeah.
This style. I want to talk about this in the present.
Yeah.
And angles and the tiny little nuances of it as opposed to, and it might be of like, if you're a doctor and I want to be only in the specialty, I want to work pediatric, whatever, and the same sort
So
of
again,
thing.
I'm a hip and knee surgeon.
Sure.
So for me to like sit back and listen to somebody talk about how they do a rotator cuff repair, it's like, I don't do that.
Sure.
Right. I appreciate it.
Sure, absolutely.
Right. And it's necessary and it's beautiful in its own right, but it's just not what I do. So like I'm sitting down and grabbing a beer with guys that are running the system with the
There you
orthopedics.
go.
And we're
You're
doing a
exactly
ton
right.
of hip
Yeah,
and knees
that's
in a
awesome.
day. And it's just like it's my lane.
It's awesome.
Right.
Same.
And you found your lane.
Correct. Yeah, you're exactly right. So,
So
yeah,
I love the system, dude.
I appreciate it. I
And
do.
I know
like
you,
to.
I
really
don't have
do.
to say keep it up because I know you're going to keep it up, but some personal stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
So, again, I know where you grew up because I grew up in the same type of area.
Sure.
You went to Grove City. Do you know Luke Laird?
Well,
Yeah, I figured. He and I are the same age.
yeah.
So he's obviously super successful now. For
I'd
those of you
say.
that don't
Yeah.
know who Luke is, originally from Conneaut Lake. I think shortly after your dad took the job in Grove City, he transferred, moved down there.
Mm-hmm.
Was a great basketball player. I remember going to Edinburgh basketball camp, and Luke was super talented on the basketball court, but even more talented, he would bring his guitar. And late at night, we'd go and we'd sit in Luke's room because Luke was going to play guitar. And
Sure.
he was amazing. The songs he'd play and the sing-alongs we would do. It was so much fun. And now Luke is one of the number one songwriters in country music in the world.
Yeah.
And has several number one hits that he wrote for different artists. But Jay, if you could put just like a little list right here, Jay's the guy that edits this for me of Luke Laird's accomplishments with his songwriting.
I'm not sure he
abilities, but-
benefited on that screen. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
It's incredible what Luke's done. I think he's actually playing. He's gonna play his guitar. I think and sing at my brother's wedding in August.
Oh my
Which would be
gosh, because
cool.
he's
So
down.
My brother's
in-
in Chattanooga, and
yeah,
he's in. But
Luke's
Luke
in-
babysat us when we were young. I'm sure we were rascals, and wow, whatever he got paid probably wasn't enough chasing us around. That's for sure. But we still got. He used to same thing. We still got tapes somewhere. I remember listening to one specifically, and this is the song that I'll have to remind Luke of this, but he had us singing James Taylor, Carolina in My Mind, the song.
Oh yeah.
And we recorded it. He was babysitting. He must have been recording us. So he's singing it, and I'm kind of singing in the background, and we're singing with them, and he's recording it. I mean, he's a neat,
You know what?
special
If
guy.
you can
man.
find that,
I'll try.
maybe get some of that to Jay, and he can put that in this podcast.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it. I mean, if anybody's got it, my mother's probably got it somewhere. But he's special guy. I mean, you talk about a guy from a small town that never forgot his roots, and that's I strive to be
I love
somebody
that kind of
like
stuff,
that.
right?
Yeah, like I never forget where Grove City is home, always will be. People I grew up with. That's
Salt of the earth
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
people,
I'm
right?
with ya.
Just hard
Yeah.
workers,
yeah,
blue collar.
very much so.
So I got to get Luke on here at some point, but I was
did.
down in Nashville a couple years ago. One of the companies I use, Orthopedic Implants, their U.S. headquarters, it's a Swiss company, but their U.S. headquarters is now in Nashville.
Wow,
and
okay.
I literally, I can't remember how I got Luke's number, but I texted him. I said, hey, Luke, Ryan Molly. I kind of explained, he knew who I was, but it was like, well, Ryan Molly, where'd this come from 30 some years later?
Sure.
And I was like, hey, I'm in Nashville. Was just wondering if you'd like to meet up for a drink. He's like, I'm out of town right now. He's like, anytime you're back, please give me a heads up. Would love to reconnect at some point. So, but that's what I like, love celebrating other people's success because it means a lot, but it also like helps to get me energized. And it's like, it
100%.
motivates me because I'm like watching what other people I'm doing, like bring that energy, take it and put it out into what I do.
Yeah, 100%. It's very you're obviously a selfless guy, but I'll reciprocate. I'll be cheering for you. I'm already a fan, but I think there's something to be said for that, right? There's something to be said for like
There's too much negativity in this world right
Yeah.
now, right? And why do we need to like hate other people
Sure.
when you can celebrate other people, like their good qualities or bad qualities, but like especially when you meet exceptional people, and that's what I have. This podcast has been by far and away the most fun project I've done in 15 years because I get to sit and talk to people that maybe I've met and thought I knew, like my best friend, learn more about him, and then people like yourself, I've never really met you or spent any significant time with you, and I have so much more newfound like respect and knowledge about who you are, what you do, and what makes you tick.
Yeah.
Like the system. So my personal question, first one is, if you weren't what you are now, a coach and a student of the game, what would you do, and where would you do it? Like, where would you live?
Well, two-part answer. The first would be my dream. Not sure it's realistic or not, but my dream would be to be in the fishing industry. Would be to be probably a fisherman in the Florida Keys somewhere, and maybe run a fishing charter or something like that.
Wow.
In the
I would
Florida
never
Keys.
have picked you as a fisherman.
Yeah, and I'm not really. That's kind of when I retire, I think that's what I want to do.
Okay.
But I've loved to fish since I grew up, and I got to do some of it, not as much as I'd like. It's hard to have I'm sure like you, it's hard to find time for a hobby, but if I could choose one, it'd be that one. I always say fishing's the only thing I love more than basketball. I
Wow.
just don't get a chance to do it.
Well,
but
now
if-
you're up on Lake Erie. I mean, in the summer, you're
Yeah.
going to have to get out there
I
and
know.
eventually get a boat of your own.
You're
and,
exactly right. Yeah. So
just-
that would
just
be the
make it
first.
happen.
Second would be the competitive side of me. I think maybe something in sales. I think that might be a little bit more realistic, but like I think something in sales would scratch that competitive itch. So probably something in sales.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you grew up, mom, dad, your brother, Johnny.
Yeah.
What are some of the most fond memories that you have growing up in Northwest Pennsylvania? Whether it was maybe some summer traditions that you would do, did you go to Conneaut Lake Park?
Sure.
Did you do this? What are some of the best memories you have of your family and growing up in Northwest
I
Pennsylvania?
appreciate you asking the question. I have this vivid memory of driving home when we were really young. We were doing this when we were really young, driving home from Edinburgh, and we would be with the Edinburgh crew, the Stoffers. I don't know if you're the Stoffers, but the Jans, Astorinos, Tom and Linda Moore, and a lot of people that are still in Edinburgh. And we would go up there, and we'd have Christmas Eve up there, and we'd drive home late at night. My dad would be driving, and we'd be my mom would have us, my brother and I, look for Santa. You know, we'd be looking up at the stars and we're trying to figure out where Santa's sleigh was. And that's something that's very
This
vivid.
is so fitting coming into Christmas, too.
Right. And when it snowed for the first time the other day, remember, I've been down there almost a decade. It snowed for the first time where I live in Summit Township. We got like probably 13, 14 inches. And it was immediately took me back to that time. Strange how that stuff works sometimes. Something you never forget. But
did it make you feel like you're in the right place?
Yeah,
at this point in your life?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, and I know that we are. But again, prayed a lot on it before we, took the job. And I do believe that this is where we're supposed to be right now. And I feel very fortunate to be around a lot of people that love us and a lot of people whom we love. But that for sure, my parents were just good people. My parents were just awesome parents. They were very strict on us and they were tough on us, but at the same time, they allowed us to grow and flourish. And we had a lot of traditions. We would go in the summer with close family friends in Grove City. We'd always go to the Outer Banks. So it was a summer tradition. The Outer Banks, a lot of the stuff that we did was geared around basketball, as you can imagine. So my dad would take same thing. We'd go to the state championships. We'd go, we'd have certain get-togethers after. We always had a holiday tournament at Christmas. Parents were great entertainers and they were great connectors and they wanted community and people to be taken care of. So they'd invite everybody to the house after our annual Christmas tournament, at Grove City High School, and everybody be at the house. So that and a million more things. But
do you take any of those qualities from your parents?
I try to. Boy, like it's funny how the older you get, you look back and you realize just how they do it. I mean, just phenomenal people, and it's probably spent all our childhood kind of butting heads with them, but then the more you
start
grow
to appreciate it, right?
Boy, it's like how'd they juggle it all, and then you look at my mother. Sometimes it's like, I mean, she's got me and my brother and my father, and we're butting heads because we're all jockeying for position on a team. Whether it's my brother and I, my dad's trying to handle it all, and he's trying to be the mediator, and then she's just trying to say it's not. There's more to this life than this game too, But yeah, they're just phenomenal people, and they create a lot of tradition for us with us. But that's why I say, like, I hope for us to be able to kind of establish some roots and have the same thing with our future kids. But super lucky to grow up where we grew up, when we grew up, with the type of people that we were surrounded with. And you use the words, grit, blue collar, and salt of the earth, and that's kind of like that's what my parents were and are, and their friends alike.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Sure.
Literally, I would not have it any other way. You look at some people that grow up in the cities and this and that. Like, I love where I grew up. Used to have to ride my bike over to Nathan Hager's house. He was my closest friend, 3 miles away.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm gonna ask a question. I think I know the answer. Maybe this is like rumor. Maybe it's not. So my parents are always like, yeah. So Johnny, your brother, he was named after Johnny Burchard because your dad really liked the style of Johnny's ball. And by the way, I think Johnny Burchard would have fit into the system quite well.
Would he?
Oh, yeah.
Johnny Burchard just stopped in the office a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm sure he's becoming a fan of yours.
I don't know if we've got Johnny to a game yet. We'll have to get Johnny Burchard to a game, but I don't. But I'll let you continue. Was that part of the? Was that the?
Well, it was just am I correct? Was your brother? There's the second part is, I think you're named after my guy.
I wish I was named after our guy.
We figured while we had Don on the call, we might as well ask this question also.
Well, Jordan
Yeah,
named
go
after.
ahead.
I think Jordan possibly came from Michael Jordan, but Johnny was named after my father. Definitely not after Johnny Burchard, although he's a Hall of Famer in his own right back in the Maple days. And maybe don't mind.
My oldest son is Nathan. He's not named after Johnny Burchard. And the youngest son is Nick, and he's not named after Johnny Burchard. Johnny was a great player for us, though, and he's a character and still a good friend. He's something else.
Michael
Our
Jordan,
guy.
our guy, for
So
sure.
is that your guy too?
Absolutely, without question. I'm only a
fantastic.
little bit jealous that you're a few years older than me enough to be able to fully appreciate it, but I've got all the video, and I still have recollection of obviously a lot of, like, I remember them Jazz, whatever what year was in the playoffs, and I have vivid memories.
So I'm just going to go through the 6 real quick with you. Okay. Number 1 was against the Lakers.
Yeah.
It was 91. 92 was against the Blazers.
Okay.
Clyde
Clyde and
Drexler,
them, yeah.
Terry Porter. Number 3 the second was 92, 93, 93, 94 was the Suns. So against Barkley.
That's a good team.
And
Kevin
that was,
Johnson,
that was
Marley.
Dan Marley, the
Yeah.
Thunder Dan. That was the best chance that Charles ever had. And he won the MVP that year.
Wow, how
and
about
Jordan
that?
was really pissed off that he won that. That was coming off the 92
Who else
Olympics.
did they have beside Kevin Johnson, Marley? Who else?
Um,
I can't think of anybody else that they would have. Roll the eyes.
yeah. Why am I drawing a blank on this right now? We're gonna look it up once we're
Okay.
done here, and maybe Jay put the 2 rosters. Then obviously Jordan, dad dies, goes into retirement, plays baseball for a year and a half, comes back. Mick Anderson from the Magic, who beat them and eliminated them, had the balls to say number 45 is not nearly as good as number 23 was, and then that was all Jordan needed. He's like, screw it. I was going to say the F word, but screw it. Bring it out of the rafters. I'm putting 23 back on. And then the next year went on to dominate. That was the 70s or the Supersonics, 96. They won their first championship with the second three-peat. Dennis Rodman was part of that team.
Yeah.
Bill Wennington was part of that team. Steve Kerr was part of that team. He was the new John Paxson.
Yep.
And then the last 2, it was against the Jazz.
Byron Russell, Stockton,
Malone. Yeah.
Hornacek.
Jeff
They
Hornacek.
had
He,
the
he was
big-
one of my favorite. They always had him guard Jordan,
Yeah.
right? I mean, he guarded Jordan the vast
So those
majority
were the
of the
ones
time.
that I remember the most.
Antoine Carr had the orange goggles.
Carr,
Remember
yeah,
him?
Yeah, sure. Who was the tall? They had the tall white guy with the kind of the military cut now. Like the
Oh,
flat
yeah.
top.
Greg Ostertag.
Greg Ostertag.
Yep.
Yeah, they had Ostertag. So that's kind of my vivid memories. I don't know that I was named after Jordan. I don't think I was.
Really?
Maybe I should start to claim it. I know. I don't know that
Did
I
you
was.
ever ask your parents?
I think that I have, and I think the answer is no. But I'm not so sure it wasn't prevalent enough at the time where I should maybe react.
so that was
but-
a Maplewood rumor.
Okay.
That was a Maplewood rumor, and that's what I was always told. Johnny was Johnny Burchett.
And I don't know that Johnny was Johnny Burchett, but I'm not sure I've ever asked about Johnny. I'm not, again,
Ask that question.
I'll ask again.
Okay.
You know how sometimes time takes away memories, but I'll ask again. But I'm pretty sure I wasn't, surprisingly, and I don't know that my brother was either. But
Yeah. So, what you mentioned you love to fish,
sure.
but what do your wife and you like to do?
We
What are your
love-
pastimes
yeah.
and hobbies?
Yeah, well, we love spending time together because we don't get a ton of it.
Yeah.
You know, she is hardworking and so successful in her own right, and just is committed to her work. So it's just the time is awesome. But we've got a golden retriever. We've got a 4-year-old golden retriever. So we like to walk. Down there we lived a mile from the beach, so walk them to the beach, but. We're foodies, we like to eat, so we love to go to dinner and try new spots. It's our favorite thing to do.
All right, so we're gonna go to that next,
Okay.
but
By far and away, it's our favorite thing to do. I mean,
so
again,
that's
we love
Karen
to-
and I.
yeah,
We are foodies.
love it. We would love to. We'll have we like to
We gotta
spend a
grab
ton
dinner
of time.
sometime
I'd love
together.
to. We'd love to, but we spend a ton of time researching like where we're gonna go, what the spot's about, and we talk about it. And I think sometimes we get into the hype of it, and then we go. And so that was I'll say this: there's some great food spots that we've been to in Erie already.
Okay, let's get them right now.
Okay. Well, but what I was gonna say was it was a tough adjustment coming from South Florida with so many people and so many.
The volume of great
the-
restaurants there
Oh
compared
man,
to here
oversaturated. But so we've been. Let's see. I'll tell you where we've been thus far. We've been to Skunk and Goat Tavern
Okay,
out in
northeast.
Yeah, northeast.
Yep, it's a good
really,
vibe.
Really solid, good vibe, ambiance. Food was good, service was good. We've been to the Cork a handful of
I was
times.
gonna say that's kind of a good staple. You're not
Yeah.
gonna get a bad meal at the Cork.
Right. It was.
Do you get the Himalayan sea salt with your steak on it?
I'm not sure. We've had steak there, and I'm not sure that we did. What did we get the last time we've been there? Sometimes we'll do a lot of apps. We'll do a lot of
Yeah.
apps and then split an entree. By the time we've ordered our 5 apps, we're not
Yeah.
so hungry for our entree and split an entree. But done the Cork a few times. I could tell that might be a staple.
Yeah.
We've been down to the oyster, oyster
Bay
bar,
House.
the Bay House.
So John Melody, do you know John yet?
I don't know John. I don't.
So
think,
John
but
was a
I've heard the name.
podcast guest.
Okay.
You'll have to watch his episode.
Okay.
Great guy. He was the soccer coach at Mercyhurst when I was there.
Okay.
Super successful. I
Wow.
mean, they went to the Final Four
Wow.
for D2 soccer
Wow.
my freshman year.
Mm.
It's a good time. Mercyhurst, our hockey team was D1.
Wow.
Went to the Frozen Four.
about
Played
that?
Michigan, University of Michigan in the
How about
Frozen
that?
Four,
Wow.
and lost 3-2. That was my senior year. But yeah, John Melody, restaurateur, owns Bay House. So what else is on your list?
We've been to Miscusi,
Yep.
solid. We've not been to Pepino's, but we've
So that's
heard
the one.
That's the one.
Yeah, that's
I've
the
heard.
one.
Yeah,
But you're gonna go out there with Drew.
we're waiting on Astrino. They
You're
got
gonna-
3 kids. They're
You're,
busy.
you're gonna get
we're
treated
busy,
great
so-
regardless of who you go with. But if you go with Drew,
I think they're
it's-
probably the guys that Jordan and Drew are probably the ones to go with. But so we're looking forward to that and everything else in between.
you have
But
not named the one that I was like thinking.
I'm
was-
anxious to hear. I haven't been here long enough to back long enough to probably know. I'm not the guy.
Any other ones?
Yeah, let's see. We've been Oliver's.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah,
Right.
we've
Great
been-
ambiance. I think
Yeah, great ambiance.
of the best views of any restaurant
Yeah.
in Erie. They've got it. I mean, you're on the top
Yeah.
floor of the
Great
hotel.
spot to take recruits, that's for sure. I've probably missed a few, but
Been to the Erie Club.
been to the Erie Club.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
good
like
spot.
private,
Yeah.
but
Nice.
very nice. Great meals.
What am I missing? What's the best?
Oh man, it's just down from the Cork, Bar Ronan.
Been there. Really good.
Yeah,
Actually, shocking that I didn't say this because surprisingly, one of the best burgers I've ever had. You
so
had
I was
it?
there. I was there last night. The Lucy Burger.
You had it.
So,
It's
so
incredible.
there was 5 of us there, and my buddy Travis, who you know, Travis.
Yeah.
I had a work dinner last night with Trav. New project we're working on. Can't really spill the beans just yet, but it's really cool. And 3 other people that had never been there, and Travis and I are like, "There's only one thing to get for
It's
the
incredible.
entree,"
It's incredible.
and I don't share my burger. I'm sorry.
I wouldn't expect you to.
It's freaking amazing.
Yeah,
It's
but who would expect
greasy
that, right?
in a non like unhealthy kind of way. Like you
Yeah.
almost feel like you're healthy when you're
Sure,
eating that
sure,
burger. The Shishito Peppers is a great app.
Adam.
They make a good like handmade potato chip with like a dip with like a bunch of vegetables.
Yep.
The one we found last night app wise was the fried chicken. They have these
Ooh,
little
not tried
nuggets
that.
and there's like a dip that
Pretty
you
good.
really good. The
They-
pork belly was good. Did you
Pork
have
belly.
that?
We had the pork belly. Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
We've done the ramen there. We've done some
So
ramen.
Tino loves the ramen.
Yeah.
Him and Luca will split. We do like family date night.
Cool.
That boys love Bar Ronan.
That's awesome. How about that? The spot they put in next door, I think they own the one next door. It just
Yeah,
went in maybe.
Lucia or whatever it
Okay,
is.
yeah, like
Yeah.
a tapas place maybe.
Yeah.
but-
Yeah, I heard it's. I heard the food's good, but I heard it's just very small because you got to think of where it went in. I think that was icing on the lake
Okay.
before, and it's just not a very
Tight.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're foodies. That's what we do. And I appreciate you asking the question. I do. We enjoy when we have the time to be able to go out and do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think Erie too gets a bad rap, right? It's like the mistake on the lake, and winters suck, but I mean, it's all what you make of it, right? And the summers in Erie, even the falls, I think are some of the best anywhere in the country
I couldn't
or the world for that matter.
couldn't agree more. I mean, I just think a lot of, and obviously, you can imagine as we're recruiting, we're flying these guys in, and we're kind of touring around the city and the university, and right, and like we're telling them about, here's what the city's about. Here's the transition that maybe the city's going through a little bit, but here's some of the stuff that they've got like cooking in the hopper.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I think. I mean, give this place a couple years, especially a lot of the stuff downtown and the revitalization
Oh,
that they're doing
doing a great-
town. I mean, it's
Great job
if
downtown.
you think about it, there's I say it to everybody, I'm like, what this city should be. I mean, for what it offers, and between Prescott and the Bay and the now the Bayfront, the cost of living, the kind of people, the quality of people, the restaurants, like. I wouldn't be shocked to see just an uptick in volume of people moving into the city, young professionals.
There's a lot of
downtown, and-
opportunities, right?
Oh, my
Especially with like
goodness.
the industry and
Yeah.
yeah, no, I feel the same vibe, and I feel like energy kind of building, especially in the downtown area.
So absolutely. I feel it every day. We're fortunate to be able to work down
Yeah,
there.
you guys
but
are right there too.
right there in and
Do you go to the
amongst
food court at
people.
all
We
for,
do.
like, lunch?
Food court, take recruits through there.
Oh, that's awesome.
You go through food court at noon on a Wednesday and have a recruit with you. I mean, you feel like you're in some, downtown district. I mean, it's really, really.
Yeah, you almost don't feel
neat.
like you're in Erie.
Not even
right?
close. Yeah, but
That's kind of how I felt at Bar Ronin too. Like the vibe there is cool,
it is.
right? You almost feel like you're like in Chicago or something. Like
Yeah, it's
like
super hip, right?
Yeah.
It's super hip and a
you
lot
got
of
some
energy in
graffiti on
there.
the walls,
Yeah.
and it's got that Asian fusion feel. It's not your classical, restaurant in Erie, Pennsylvania.
that we might be used to. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it was really neat. I know. So I am again. I was born here, so I have a lot of, I want this place to be just a phenomenal city to live in. It is, but it's also it's such an easy sell, right? It's easy to talk about
Yeah.
because there's so much going on here, and it's such a cool place to be. So we're super fortunate to be back, and looking forward to continuing to explore all the stuff that's new since we left.
You hit some of the good ones, but there's a couple more that I'll share with you.
Cool.
Once we go off air.
I'll
So
take that insider information.
7th inning Sawbone shoe stretch. We chatted a little bit before we kind of went on air here. Love what you're wearing.
Thanks, yeah.
Obviously. So what are you sporting there, Jordan?
So these are the Jordan Dior's. Like I said, these were a gift. The original, and I'll share. I've got to be honest, right? I'm on the air. I've got to be honest. These aren't the real Dior's. If these were the real Dior's, I probably wouldn't be wearing them out. They'd probably
be
be in a
locked in a
collector's
vault,
box
right?
somewhere. But these were special because it was a buddy of mine that helped me get these for my wedding, and I wore these the night of my wedding. So surprisingly, not the most comfortable. Maybe the real Dior's are, but the knockoffs that I've got aren't the most comfortable. So I'm out there on the dance floor, and I could feel it a little bit. But
you got to get into some. Do you have any other Jordans that
I
are?
don't. Yeah, I wear a lot of.
What size you?
I wear 11s.
You got a small foot.
Yeah, I
You're
know.
tall.
Small
What are you,
foot.
6'2"?
6'2.5", 6'3".
Okay, yeah, I'm 6. I was 6'3", but I'm getting shorter.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you got to get some. Love the Dior's, by the way. And so the funny thing is I was down here setting up before Jordan got here, and the boys were like, they've been super pumped because they thought it was a couple weeks ago. I had to cancel one night. You had to cancel one night. So I'm super excited that we got this together.
Sure.
But they went to the game. They're like, when's Coach Jordan Fee coming on? Like that's the talk because they love that style of play.
Sure.
And so I said, you guys go upstairs. You talk to them for a bit. I got to get everything organized down here. And Tino and Luca come down. They're like, do you know what he's wearing? Do you know what kind of shoes he's wearing? I'm like, no, I didn't ask him. It's kind of, I want to be surprised. I'm like, he's wearing Dior's. He's wearing Dior's. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Just make sure you don't tell me there's a fake Dior's. But yeah, these are the fake Dior's. How about you? Are those the mids?
No, so these
are
are
those
the
lows or mids?
Jordan 1 lows. These are called the Bordeaux's,
Okay.
right? Because they kind of look like Bordeaux wine.
Yeah.
And, I tried to match it with a hat, and then I
You
knew
did
what I was
well.
wearing here.
You did well. I
Right.
didn't, but you did well. Yeah,
So a
you
little
did
bit of
well.
the Gannon burgundy, whatever you want to call that.
Yeah.
But yeah, super comfy. Probably one of my favorite pair, and you saw it's my collections. I think we're 49 right now, and I've got a couple pairs coming in the mail. So we'll go over 50 here in the next
Cool.
week. I got a pair that came today. They're the reverse bred 1 lows. So they're the kind of like the classic Jordan that they
Got
made in the movie,
Yeah.
but the reverse. So
Cool.
where it was black, it's red. Wherever it's red it was black.
Cool.
So
Yeah, really cool.
So next thing we do is going to be the fun parts, the Sawbones challenge. Did you get to watch that part?
Then
Yeah. So this is the part where we actually do something like cool, fun, competitive.
okay,
So you're competitive,
Now I'm
I'm
fired up,
competitive. It's
this is good.
like getting ready to go
Uh-huh.
now. So you saw a little bit of what we got going out there in the
Yeah.
sport court
Sure.
area. So we got options.
Okay.
We can either do pig or something like that on the breakaway hoop.
Okay.
The pop a shot over in the corner.
Okay.
Bill Hager and we did that one. That was the only Sawbones challenge. Well, actually, that was when I was recording it. The memory file went corrupt.
Okay.
So like it didn't record. And I was like, I beat him. I beat Coach Bill Hager. And he's lefty and he's
Yeah.
got an arthritic elbow from his days of pitching. And
Okay.
I beat him. It was close. I think it was 10-8.
Okay.
So we've got that. We've got NBA Jam over in the corner. Never done that one, but I'm feeling like pig or something.
Well, I'll tell you what, you got me a little nervous. I was never a great shooter, and you're talking about your shooting ability. So I'm a little bit nervous about horse. I could get a little creative maybe and try to figure if I can do something that you can't do. But pop a shot is a little different because it's not a normal shot. It's more about like rhythm and touch. I'm game for either.
I'll tell you, pop a shot. It's not the traditional game where you're timed. What we've done just to make it a little less chaotic, because when I go pop a shot, I'm just gonna be honest, I become a bit of an asshole. and
then you and I are wrestling on the floor, going shoulder to shoulder. We don't want that.
The camera gets knocked over.
Yeah, we don't
Karen
want that.
comes down. She's yelling, "What are you guys doing?" No, it's I go right, left. I'm just like volume shooter.
Okay.
And it's just like I'm gonna make more than you because I'm shooting more than you.
Yeah.
It's and I'm stealing the ball from you, and you're just not liking me at the end of it. So what we do is we do first one to make 10, but we alternate shots.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So it's
well, let's go pig. Let's go pig.
You want to do pig?
Let's go pig.
Coming up, pig.
Looking forward
It's the
to it.
All Bones Challenge. Hang in there.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event.
All right, everybody, Sawbones Challenge. We're doing the basement version again tonight. So Coach Fee decided he wants to do a little bit of pig.
Yep.
Right? I haven't taken any warm-up shots, right?
I'm gonna give you a couple. Do you need a couple?
No, I don't want any. You
All
start.
me? All right, guess we're up first.
Yeah, let's go first.
All right,
This is
let's go.
pig.
Pig.
Yeah.
We're just gonna start out super general here. Just a little jumper. Oh.
So my tendency in this game is I kind of do some odes and tributes to greats from years past.
Okay.
So this is my one. This is a Kareem.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna do a little bit of skyhook.
Okay.
Right, so you gotta take the ball that way, come up, over.
Tough.
You're kind of in the archway when you're
Okay.
doing that too.
Boy, this feels like a home court advantage to me.
Yeah, maybe. That's a tough shot, right? Then we're gonna go Kobe, right? So we're gonna
I
come
feel like
over
this
here.
is all planned out. He's got this.
Hey,
He's just playing me. He's
this is-
paid me a guarantee to come here. This is like a buy game. This is called a buy
no,
game. High
this
major.
is what we call the system. So, and I've got my what were the waves? I had my
Waves.
first wave. So we got P, nothing. So we're gonna go Kobe, little fadeaway, gonna fake left, come back right. Kobe.
Okay. Let's go. I'm stealing your thunder.
Oh boy.
I'm going MJ against Byron Russell. What was it?
Oh yeah, you're pushing off.
97. I'm gonna go a little push off and a little snatch back.
Oh, push back.
Ah, gotta make it though.
I'm gonna, you know what? Fight fire with fire. I'm doing the same thing, but I'm gonna bring it over here just a little bit. Right? So he was coming right.
He's going left to right, right?
Yeah. And then he cut
There it
push.
is.
Fade. Oh, brick. Absolute brick.
Alright. I'm gonna go a little lefty scoop, little lefty underhand scoop and mix it up a little bit. Hey,
All right.
nada.
We need a little bit of action here. Okay?
I hope I don't break your light.
Oh, there it is! Oh! Nice. All right, now we just gotta feel the flow a little bit. A little turnaround. Bingo. Oh, the brick.
We're going straight free throw here.
Oh, the pressure's on.
We'll go free throw back. Gotta be a back. Man,
All right, we're gonna fade this way back. Oh.
go another free throw back. Go one hand. No two hands. One hand.
Ooh,
Doesn't
so
count.
doesn't count?
Yeah, I go back.
Okay. We're coming back we're going right to left here. Faking right, coming back left. I didn't call it bank, but.
Doesn't matter. Faking right.
Oh!
Yeah. Come on.
We're going deep.
He's feeling the finish
We're
here.
going deep. I don't think I'm even at the camera angle here. Oh! I hit my rim on my hat.
Here's my chance. All right.
I opened the door.
We're going a little reverse, except your head's got to be on this side of the rim. Little touch shot.
Oh!
PPI.
P? Yeah, it is P to PI.
Okay. Go a little I gotta stay in this thing. So I gotta do what I can make, but I'm not feeling a bounce here.
Ooh. Well, it's gonna fall eventually.
Nice with a little fade. We'll go 1 foot better. We'll go 1 foot free throw kind of ish run.
Launch control, Houston. We're clear for launch. Free throw.
Don't see any? Okay,
Jordan style.
get your head on that ceiling.
I think I landed before I tucked it.
I was worried about your ankles, now I'm worried about mine. Alright. There's not much that's good for it, but I might be good for this.
That's awesome. All right, back to Kareem. I don't think he can make it.
I don't know. But I gotta be positive here. Okay.
Oh!
What a way to lose.
Kareem took him down. Hey, a lot of fun.
Good game.
A lot of fun.
Bust.
Stay tuned. Catch you soon. Have a good one. Hey, everybody. We're back from the Sawbones Challenge. And Jordan, I just want to thank you again for taking the time. I have no idea what time it is, but this is going to be, I think, what time is it?
I'm not sure. Let's see. It's 10:20.
Wow. So we've been recording for a little over 2 hours now. I've had a couple 2-hour episodes. This is going to be up there, but awesome, fun night. I want to thank you for taking the time out. I know you're a very, very busy guy, newly married, young wife, and you're new to the area, but not really because you're back to the area. But thank you. All right. This is fun.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate you. I respect you. I respect what you do. Obviously you're phenomenal at, at your occupation, but I respect far more of your obvious, care and, want to with your family and your boys, as a caretaker, as a man, as a husband, as a father, all that stuff. So
yeah, those are my first priorities for sure.
It's awesome. It's awesome to be able to be very successful at both, but it's awesome to see you in a light away from your occupation. And oftentimes, right, in ours, you may, sometimes
you
you
get
don't
identified
get
as
you
like,
do.
well,
Yeah.
he's a basketball coach, and
Right.
they think that you don't have a life outside that. Same thing. I'm a surgeon, and yeah, it does occupy the majority of our daily waking hours. But other than that, you have other hobbies, interests, and
Sure.
and this was an awesome opportunity to kind of learn more about that and really to see what makes you tick.
Sure.
And I always ask my guests at the end, is like, Jordan, where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years? And I think you're going to be one of the more unique answers because you're fresh in your field and you're young and you're hungry. And I honestly think the sky's the limit. I hope we have you here in Erie for a while, but I don't think this is your final destination. I have a feeling that I don't want to say bigger, better things because that makes it sound like what you're doing is not great. But I do think that you're going to write your history. You can do what you want to do.
I appreciate you asking the question. I'd answer it with in two different ways. The first is I've always been a fan of the quote of, make the big time where you are. To me, there's nothing, and I've shared this with our guys, there's nothing bigger in college basketball right now than Gannon University men's basketball. It's just how I feel. So it's what I'm about. It's where I want to be. I'm so proud to be here. Again, growing up as a young guy, watching Gannon basketball games, one of my dad's best players ever, Josh Morgan, was a player here, and we used to sit in the nosebleeds up there at the Hammer Mill at the time, now the Highmark, and watch games. So, one, make the big time where you are, and then two, if I ever spent too much time trying to forecast the future, I think I'd miss what's right in the present.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
It sounds like a cop-out answer, but it's genuinely how I live my life. I don't try to forecast what's in the future. And sure, you've got to have those thoughts at some point in time. But right now, my goal is to coach college basketball and influence the lives of the guys I coach and make the community better around me and get to wake up every day and work a job, if you want to call it that, where I don't feel like I'm working, and I never have, and I'm not sure I ever will. But if that's what I say I want to do, and it is, then, this, maybe I'm here forever, if Gannon is nice enough to have me forever. But right now it is make the big time where you are. That's how I feel about this place. And I'm right where I want to be.
Jay, that may just have to be the title for this episode. Make the big time where you are. Because I love that. I love the perspective that you have, especially for a young guy. You're mature beyond your years for sure, just sitting and talking with you, but respecting the present and just knowing to not get too caught up in, I want to get to this level. Because it's very easy to do that no matter what profession you're in, right? Like to think, I want to go here, then I want to do this, and then my next step is this. But it's like, and I finally, just in the past couple of years, have finally really grown very comfortable in my skin, and I'm like super comfortable where I am, and I don't see myself anywhere else from here. This is my kind of forever job. I'm fortunate in that, in what I've done and what I've built. But dude, I love your perspective. And by the way, you have already made an impact on those young men's lives that you're coaching currently and will coach in the future. And your energy that I see now that you're not in those nosebleeds, you have a little bit different perspective these days. Sure. Probably the best seat in the house. And you're watching some really, really exciting, leading some very exciting basketball and leadership skills in the Erie community. So thank you.
I'm very appreciative, again, of you having me. Respect what you do, respect your family. And
you're going to see a lot of us too, by the way.
I'm looking forward to that as well.
So have a Merry Christmas.
You as well. Merry Christmas.
Wish you, your family, Merry Christmas.
Well.
The Gannon family, a great upcoming basketball season, men's, women's, all of that. Again, here to watch you, here to support you. For all of our guests out there, Merry Christmas to you. This is going to be coming on literally, I think, the week before Christmas. And I know we're all looking forward to times, with our families, making memories. There's nothing better than for me waking up with my wife, my 3 boys in this house, and just enjoying each other's company for a good. I always take the week off between Christmas and New Year's, and I'm going to do that this year. Will probably till the day I die. But thank you. Subscribe, support, ask us questions. If you have any guests that you'd love to see, help me with the Luke Laird one. Okay.
Gotcha.
Got to get Luke on here. I think that'd be super exciting. Maybe get him to play a couple songs for us. And
really cool.
Other than that, have a great night. We'll see you soon. Take care.
Well, I have loved some fishing in the outdoors where I'm free. It's where I spent my time before I hurt my hip and my knee. When that doctor asked me, son, how'd you get in this condition? I says, hey, soft bones, I'm just carrying on an old family tradition. I wanna know, Doc, why do you think I got some pain in my joints from years of playing hard in this life that's too short? When that doctor asked me, son, how'd you get in this condition? I says, hey, soft bones, I'm just carrying on an old family tradition. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tell me all about it, Doc.